We're now live.
Good afternoon. Opening today's meeting of Santa Rosa City School Board, Wednesday, October 26, 2022. At this time, I'll take public comments on closed session agenda items. Public comments on closed session agenda items.
Would you like me to call?
Good evening, all. Good evening, all. Thank you for attending today's meeting, the Santa Rosa City School Board, opening this meeting Wednesday, October 26, 2022. And we will start our meeting with a territorial land acknowledgement. And joining us, one of our own, our school psychologist, Karen Reynolds. Turn it over to you.
Hi, good evening. I acknowledge that Santa Rosa City Schools is on the traditional territory and homelands of the Pomo people, traditional territory and homelands of the Coast Miwok people, and honor with gratitude the land itself and the people who have stewarded it throughout the generations. This land acknowledgement calls us to commit to continuing to learn how to be better stewards of the land we inhabit. By offering this land acknowledgement, we affirm Indigenous sovereignty and will work to hold Santa Rosa City Schools more accountable to the needs of American Indian and Indigenous peoples.
Thank you. We will continue to honor the past and the present for the future of this land and for the future of our school community with respect and gratitude. Thank you. All in attendance, please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. Thank you all again, and please forgive us for being a little bit late on starting our meeting. Begin with some grounding remarks. A report was released earlier this week from the California Department of Education in their assessment of student performance and progress. And the results predictably were not good. Declines are reported among high and low performing students alike. However, the sharpest declines are coming from English language learners and students of color. The declines mirror test score results from students across the country and are clearly another consequence of the pandemic and its impact on our schools. As I mentioned, this was a predictable decline, but nonetheless troubling. The test scores provide a very clear indicator of the real impacts of the pandemic on academics. And this should be a wake-up call for all of us. From my perspective, there's a strong case for the need for more federal and state funding. There's a strong need for our district to be strategic with the resources that we already have. And there's also an indication of a greater need for classroom support for our teachers and for our staff to help students get back on track and up the steep mountain. So tonight, let's ground ourselves in a quote from our superintendent. As a school district, we want to remind people that behind this data are people, and people who have persevered through a number of challenges over the last few years. We want to be very sensitive to the judgments we come to around this data, while understanding we have work to do in supporting students and staff in building proficiency. And these are wise words from our superintendent, an article that was in the Press Democrat earlier this week. Thank you, Superintendent Trinnell. All right, we will start with agenda item C3, a report of actions taken in closed session. The board voted 5 yes, 1 abstention on OAH case number 202-208-0150. The yes votes were Flores, Fong, Manieri, McCormick, Medina, and Sheffield. The abstention was from De La Cruz. Oh, I'm sorry. Manieri was not here. Let me read that back again. We have yes votes from Flores, Fong, McCormick, Medina, Sheffield, and abstention from De La Cruz. The board will now take a vote on stipulated student expulsion case number 22-2303. We will record this vote. And we do not need a motion on this. We will just go down on a roll call vote.
Director Bowie.
Without Director Bowie.
Okay. Director De La Cruz.
Aye.
Director Fong. Director McCormick.
Aye.
Director Flores.
Aye.
Director Medina.
Nay.
President Sheffield.
Yes. All right. The vote passes. The board will now take a vote on stipulated student expulsion case number 22-2304. Again, we do not need a motion. We will do a roll call vote.
Director De La Cruz.
Aye.
Director Fong. Director McCormick.
Aye.
Director Flores.
Aye.
President Sheffield. I'm sorry, Director Medina.
Aye.
President Sheffield.
Aye. All right, motion passes. Moving on to agenda item C4, items considered in closed session for action in open session. Well, we just covered that. C5, statements of abstention. Are there statements of abstention tonight? All right, seeing none, we'll move on to C6, adjustments to the agenda. Board Superintendent Turnell, any adjustments?
Yes, thank you, President Sheffield. I would like to request and pull from the consent agenda item F8 and item F10.
F8 and F10, other adjustments to the agenda?
I wanted to pull F5 and F7
F7, okay, F7, we have F8 and F10.
and F5.
F5,
Yeah.
okay. All right, and now we'll go to the public for adjustments to the agenda on F items, consent items only. I do not have any blue cards in front of me, but do we have folks in the audience who would like to poll consent items?
If there's members of the public joining us on Zoom and would like to comment on the consent agenda, it's towards the end of the agenda. If there's anything that you'd like to speak about later on in the meeting, please raise your hand at this time. President Sheffield, I do not see any hand raised.
All right, well, one last call for folks joining us in the audience on F items. All right, we're going to move on to C7. This is a special presentation for Students of the Month and Certificated Classified Employees of the Month. Tonight, we have students, families, and school staff joining us for this special presentation from Abraham Lincoln and Hilliard Comstock Middle School. The presentation this evening will honor our students for their academics, their character, and their praiseworthy accomplishments. And we'll also be honoring our certificated and classified employees for their outstanding dedication and service. So joining us for these presentations, we have Principal Wilson and Principal Hendrickson. So we'll start with you, Dr. Wilson. Welcome.
Thank you so much for having me. We're going to first say thank you for having us here tonight to the school board and to Superintendent Trinnell. It's nice to see some of you yet again today. Starting the day and ending the day together is great. We'd first like to start with our student of the month, Fatima Lomeli. I hope she is here tonight. I don't see her in the audience. Ms. Martin, is she online by any chance?
I don't see her online either.
Okay, well, I'd still like to take the opportunity to read what we have written up about Fatima because she is well deserving of this award. Fatima is a great 6th grade student. She consistently completes her classwork and homework. She is always willing to help her classmate what they need in order to have her help. She tests out different strategies to see what works best and is willing to share her thoughts with others. She knows she may not always be right, but understands she will learn quicker when discussing her thoughts with a friend or other peer. Speaking of working with a friend, she still has many friends in class that she met in kindergarten years ago. They often reminisce about how they met each other, and if it wasn't for her crying on that first day of school, they might never have met. She's funny and likes to impart her wisdom on others. She is often seen eating an apple for breakfast and tells those around her that she must continue this practice because an apple a day keeps the doctor away. Fatima is always in a good mood. She is not the student who groans at difficult work. She takes academic risks and comes out on top. She knows that learning is a process and it will take time. For all these reasons and many more, Fatima Lomeli is Lincoln Student of the Month.
Congratulations to Fatima.
I would like to invite Martin Cortez to come down and join me. He is our classified member of the month. This is Martin Cortez. To say that he is a head custodian of Abraham Lincoln does not suffice. Martin is an essential part of Abraham Lincoln's family and community. Martin joined Abraham Lincoln as head custodian in 2019. Prior to joining Abraham Lincoln, he worked at Montgomery High School. I don't think they're very happy that we stole him. Martin takes pride in his work and anything that he does. Martin is constantly seen on campus working and in classrooms, making sure the campus is taken care of, safe, and presentable at all times. Some of you saw that today. He builds relationships with everyone he encounters, staff, students, and parents alike. He is a role model to everyone on campus, but especially to the students. It is often I am asked by the students if they can go and help Martin. The students not only see his work ethic, but enjoy his sense of humor and genuine interest that he takes in each and every student. Martin is never seen without a smile, is always positive, kind, sincere, energetic, and a team player. He is willing to go above and beyond work every single day. He will be the first to lend a hand, to open a door, or go the extra mile without even being asked. His pride in Abraham Lincoln is not seen in only his tremendous work, but is in how he respects and treats everyone that he encounters. Martin is an amazing employee and is well deserving of this award. Congratulations.
Congratulations, Martin.
And finally, I'd like to invite Wendy Snetsinger down for the Certificated Teacher of the Month. Wendy Snetsinger has been an influential teacher for the past 27 years, the last 12 of which have been at Abraham Lincoln. Wendy is not just an exceptional teacher, yet a teacher who has taught every grade, kindergarten through 6th grade, throughout her career. As a teacher, Wendy's dedication is not limited to the bell schedule each day. She has also been a part of the Advanced Learner Plan and Services, ALPS Committee, the multi-tiered system supports, MTSS, and is also our lead teacher of Abraham Lincoln, which she has also been for the last few years. In addition, Wendy has volunteered to tutor her students after school, as well as for the Migrant Ed program. This does not include all of the other areas in which she has influenced, such as bringing the gang-resistant education and training, which is called the GREAT program, to the 5th grade students of Abraham Lincoln, as well as bringing back student government and spirit weeks to Abraham Lincoln, as well as an SRTA representative and being a member of School Site Council. Wendy is not only dedicated to her instruction with the student, yet also to the relationship she builds with the students on an individual level. As a lead teacher, Wendy's relationship with the students is key when having to counsel or discipline students. When Wendy takes the time to listen to the students and guide them to making better decisions. Wendy's relationship does not stop with just the students. Wendy believes in staff relationship and time to be more than just colleagues. Wendy currently volunteered to open her home to Lincoln staff earlier this month for a staff get-together. It was a wonderful opportunity for the staff to relax and enjoy one another's company outside of Lincoln. Wendy not only gives 100%, but is someone who consistently goes above and beyond. Her positive and friendly demeanor makes working with her very enjoyable. Wendy is a team player and collaborates with the entire staff, including myself, the administration. Wendy is flexible and always willing and ready to work tirelessly for the Lincoln staff, students, parents, and community. Wendy is a tremendous asset to Abraham Lincoln and is well deserving of this award. Congratulations.
Congratulations, Wendy. Congratulations, Wendy. Thank you, Principal Wilson, and congratulations again to Fatima, Martin, and Wendy. Now we'll have Principal Hendrickson from Comstock Middle School come. On down. Welcome, Principal Hendrickson.
Hi, good evening, everyone. I'm so happy to be here for this amazing tradition that we've maintained through everything, even through the lockdown. So what a great opportunity to share with you just some of the wonderful people that work at my school, but really for all of us in this district. I'm going to begin with our student of the month, the most incredible young man that we've seen at the school, honestly, Cesar Mora.
Caesar.
Have a seat, Caesar. So I'm going to read these fabulous things about you. Try not to smile. Okay. Caesar is a dedicated academic student and a tremendous scholar athlete. He is kind, respectful, sincere, and authentic, and he is mature beyond his years. In addition to being a great student and an excellent athlete at Comstock, he is also a top-level club soccer player in our community. He attends school, goes to practice in cross country in the fall and track in the spring for 1 to 2 hours a day, and then he goes to his club soccer practice for an additional 2 hours. He could choose to only participate in his soccer league because of the energy time commitment, but he is not your average young man. Caesar has a unique drive to be the best at everything he takes on. Caesar has been able to participate in both his outside soccer and our Comstock track and cross country because he loves representing his school and being involved with his friends and classmates. At the same time, he has achieved A+ grades in all of his classes in both 7th and 8th grade. Caesar was the Santa Rosa City Schools League cross-country individual champion in both the 7th and 8th grade, and he just won the Sonoma County top. Out of 150 runners, he was the best distance runner, competing against both 7th and 8th graders 2 years in a row. In track and field last year, he was the league champion in the 3 longest and most challenging running events. With all of his success in school and sports, he remains humble, soft-spoken, and respectful. In physical education, he is the most dedicated student in our program out of 450 students. There is not another student who gives the level of effort day in and day out like Caesar. His PE teacher and coach states, quote, "In my 27 years in education, teaching and coaching students, I would place Caesar at the very top of the list in all categories of excellence. The best thing about this young man is his character. He's a great student and an amazing athlete, but Caesar is even a better person. I can honestly say he may be the best all-around student athlete I have ever taught and coached," end quote. Really. Caesar states that he loves school. He finds the classes and opportunities interesting, challenging, and fun. He especially enjoys math because he loves solving problems, even if they are difficult. As another teacher states, quote, "Caesar turns in work that he has worked and reworked until it is perfect," end quote. We are also impressed by his work ethic and efforts. Caesar's immediate goals are to get good grades so he can get to a great college. He is not sure yet what he would like to study, but we are confident that he will be impressive and outstanding in whatever he chooses to do. Caesar is definitely worthy of this prestigious honor, and we are grateful for our time with you here at Comstock. Thank you. Do we want the family down or just the student? Okay, so another fabulous person, Christy Middleton, a classified employee of the month. Christy, come on down. We are delighted to honor Christy Middleton, Special Education Assistant, as Comstock's classified staff member selected for the Board of Education's honor this year. Christy started as a one-on-one assistant assigned to a student here in 2015. We saw her amazing work ethic, collaborative spirit, and love for students, and we wanted her to be an official part of our team. When we started the Bridge program, she was selected to be the assistant to Miss Bianchi, who is also being honored tonight as well. Christy and Donna turned that program into a loving, supportive academic community. Students were thriving under their care. Christy was a thought partner and contributor to the development of the program. Students respected her and looked up to her as a role model. When the program was dissolved in 2019, we were lucky to have an opening as a special ed assistant so that Christy could apply and fill the role. Her ability to multitask, her intelligence, and her hard work has helped all the teachers and aides in the program stay organized and on top of their work. Her continuous support with students has supported the classroom environment. She has assisted in school-wide programs as well, such as Leadership, Marathon Club, Redwood Empire Food Bank, Early College Magnet Field Trips, and our school garden. We are so pleased that Christy has chosen to make Comstock her home away from home. Actually, she was a student there as well. And we are indebted to her in every way. Congratulations.
Congratulations, Kristen.
And our certificated employee of the month is Donna Bianchi, and I believe she's on Zoom. There she is. Hi, Donna.
Hi, Donna.
Donna would have been here with us, but her family just happened to drop in from LA. So she's there. Hello. Okay. Donna joined Comstock Middle School as our first bridge teacher. She took the mission of supporting our most vulnerable at-risk students and made them a cherished part of our community. She is a lifelong learner, an environmentalist, an avid gardener, and passionate communicator. She cares deeply about the community, especially the northwest part of Santa Rosa where she lives. During her time with Bridge, she helped build our community garden, led students on nature walks, worked on creek restoration, took students on field trips to places they had never been, all the while giving students an education in all core subjects every day. Because she is credentialed in science, Donna decided to move to that department when an opening came up. She teaches our 7th grade students. Her dedication to understanding and imparting the next generation science standards made her a great collaborator with the staff at school and in the district. Students learn a lot in her classes in a way that is interesting and fun. Donna also became our yearbook advisor, and this year leads a new yearbook and newsletter elective. She is training students to be reporters of all that is good and positive going on at our school, helping to build a climate of which we can be proud. Further, Donna has helped us with our campus beautification efforts in the garden beds in our quad, where we recently had our peace pole and mural dedications. She uses these beds as hands-on science labs for biological studies, and they look beautiful as well. Finally, this year, she has stepped up to be a department chair for science and lends a wise voice to our team. Donna has been willing to do whatever it takes to help students succeed and support the Comstock community. For this, we are honored to nominate her for this prestigious award. Congratulations, and thank you so much, Donna.
Thank you, Laura.
I'll get this to you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Principal Hendrickson, and congratulations again to Caesar and Christy and Donna. Congratulations, all of you. All right, we are going to move on to C8, our school site parent organizations, and we have an update from Abraham Lincoln Elementary tonight. We have Marielle and Maria. Come on down. Welcome, welcome.
Muy buenas noches a todos los presentes y muy buenas noches a todos los miembros de la mesa directiva escolar de Santa Rosa. Buenas noches, Superintendente Ana Trump. Mi nombre es Mireya Rodríguez. Soy la presidenta de la Asociación de Organización de Padres de Familia, PFO. Represento a los padres de Lincoln.
Good evening, everyone. Good evening to all members of the Santa Rosa City Schools Board of Education. Good evening, Superintendent Ana Trunell. My name is Mireya Rodriguez. I am the president of the Parent Faculty Organization, PFO. I represent the parents of Lincoln.
Es un honor y un placer estar aquí. Nuestra asociación está trabajando arduamente para apoyar a la escuela y a nuestros estudiantes. Ahora que poco a poco las cosas van volviendo a la normalidad, estamos volviendo poco a poco a las actividades que realizamos con nuestra comunidad antes de la pandemia.
It is an honor and a pleasure to be here. Our association is working hard to support the school and our students. Now that things are little by little getting back to normal, we are slowly returning to the activities that we carry out with our community before the pandemic.
Este año el PFO está promoviendo más nuestro espíritu escolar en Lincoln y se diseñaron nuevas playeras del espíritu escolar. El personal y los estudiantes y las familias están muy emocionados y están comprando mucho los artículos. Esto ayudará a generar más dinero para que el PFO apoye a la escuela y a los maestros. Además, estamos regresando a algunos de nuestros eventos anuales, como el Festival de Invierno, las tardes de cine. Esperamos tener más oportunidades para unir a nuestra comunidad de Lincoln.
This year, our PFO wanted to promote more of our Lincoln spirit and designed new spirit wear. The staff, students, and families are very excited and are purchasing many items. This will help generate more money for the PFO to help us support the school and teachers. In addition, we are getting back to some of our annual events, such as the Winter Festival and movie events. We look forward to having more opportunities to bring our Lincoln community together.
Nuestro plan principal es crear un ambiente escolar donde los niños se sientan bienvenidos y cómodos. Para lograr esto, solicitamos su colaboración en brindar sombras adecuadas al área donde comen los niños, ya que las sombrillas que tenemos no son de cobertura suficiente. También queremos que las mesas donde comen estén pintadas, ya que son de metal y en los días calurosos reflejan la intensidad del sol y cerca del invierno hace demasiado frío para que los niños se sienten.
Our main plan is to create a school atmosphere where children feel welcome and comfortable. In order to achieve this, we ask you for your collaboration in offering adequate shade to the area where the children eat. Since the umbrellas we have are not enough coverage, we also want the tables where they eat to be painted since they are made of metal, and on hot days, they reflect the intensity of the sun. And near winter, they are too cold for the children to sit there.
Finalmente, ¿cómo nos pueden aconsejar para trabajar con los parques de la ciudad? Ya que los días lunes en la mañana, el parque donde juegan los estudiantes están muy sucios y muchas veces hay botellas y vidrios rotos que pueden causar un accidente si los niños juegan ahí. Nuestro conserje pasa mucho tiempo limpiando esta área, lo que quita tiempo para otras de sus funciones.
Finally, how can you advise us to work with the city's parks. Since on Mondays mornings, the park is very dirty where the students play, and many times there are broken bottles and glass that can cause an accident if the children play there. Our custodian spends a lot of time cleaning this area, which takes away from him or doing his other duties.
Los padres de Lincoln, nuestros estudiantes y maestros agradecen al distrito por asignarnos un trabajador de actividad de participación estudiantil para nuestros niños. Ellos están muy contentos con las actividades que están haciendo con ellos. Muchas gracias por su atención y apoyo. Que tengan una linda noche.
Lincoln parents, our students, and teachers thank the district for assigning us a student engagement activities worker for our children. They are very happy with the activities she is doing with them. Thank you very much for your attention and support. Have a nice night.
Thank you.
Buenas noches a todos. Buenas noches a todo miembro de la mesa directiva escolar de Santa Rosa. Buenas noches, Super Ana.
Good evening, everyone. Good evening to all members of Santa Rosa City Schools Board of Education. Good evening, Superintendent Ana Tronell.
Ayúdame porque no miro.
She's so nervous and she said that she can read the rest and asking Mireya if she can do it for her.
Mi nombre es María Uc y soy una de las presidentas de ILAC, junto con Mónica Cruz y Araceli Orozco. He sido voluntaria en la escuela Lincoln por más de 8 años. A lo largo de todo este tiempo, he visto la educación de los maestros y administradores ayudar a los estudiantes que están aprendiendo inglés. Prueba de ellos que mi hija, el primer grado, ahí va a ser reclasificada y todos los niños aprenden de la manera diferente y un ritmo diferente. Los maestros de Lincoln responden a las necesidades de todos nuestros estudiantes en la forma que necesitan apoyo.
My name is Maria Uc, and I am one of the ELAC representatives along with Monica Cruz and Araceli Orozco. I have been a volunteer at Lincoln School for over 8 years. Through all this time, I have seen the dedication of teachers and administrators to assist students who are learning English. Proof of this, it's my daughter in the 1st grade is already going to be reclassified. I know that all children learn differently and at different rates. The Lincoln teachers respond to the needs of all our students in the ways they need support.
Gracias a las reuniones mensuales que tenemos con nuestra directora, doctor Windsor, y la maestra Miss Cruz, nos enteramos a lo que está pasando en la escuela, qué estrategias usan los maestros para ayudar a los niños cuyo lenguaje mantenemos el inglés. También nos informa de los diferentes programas utilizando en la computadora que apoya al aprendizaje de inglés como Alexia, vamos a aprender, Sparking, Rosetta, Exton, otros.
Thanks to the monthly meetings we have with our principal, Dr. Wilson and Mrs. Cruz, we find out what is happening in the school, what strategies teachers use to help children whose native language is not English. They also inform us of the different programs used on the computer that support the learning of English, such as Lexia, Let's Go Learn, Sparks, Rosetta Stones, among others.
También quiero mencionar que ILAC brindará un gran oportunidad para que los padres tendremos una voz y construyamos con nuestras ideas y presentamientos sobre las cosas que están sucediendo en la escuela o con el plan escolar.
I also want to mention that ELAC provides a great opportunity for us, parents, to have a voice and to contribute our ideas and thoughts about things that are happening at the school or with the school plan.
Quiero agregar que las reuniones que ofrecen el distrito para los padres de familia, los estudiantes que están aprendiendo inglés, DILAC nos ha instruido a los bases legales educativas y cómo debe trabajar las escuelas para ayudar a nuestros estudiantes, pero sobre todo como nosotros como padres podemos apoyar a nuestros hijos y a nuestras escuelas. Sabemos que debemos a la pandemia del COVID-19 los reducimientos educativos se han visto muy afectados. Sin embargo, nuestros maestros y administradores están trabajando y hacia lo mejor que pueda para sacar adelante a nuestros hijos. Agradecemos.
I want to add that the meeting offered by the district for the parents of students who are learning English, DILAC, have instructed us in the educational legal basis and how the schools must work to help our students. But above all, how we as parents can support our children and our school. We know that due to the COVID-19 pandemic, educational achievement has been greatly affected. However, our teachers and administrators are working and doing the best they can to get our children ahead.
Agradecemos profundamente a todas las personas que ha sido posible que los estudiantes que están aprendiendo inglés que tengan más herramientas para tener éxito en su rendimiento académico. Nos gustaría ver que el distrito aplique el programa de la tutoría a todos los estudiantes que necesitamos ayudar adicional para todos los estudiantes. Tenemos el nivel de educación más alta. Gracias.
I deeply appreciate all the people who make it possible for students who are learning English to have more tools to be successful in their academic achievement. We would like to see the district expand the tutoring program for all students who need extra help, so all students have a higher educational level. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Maria. Thank you, Mariella. Thank you. Nice job. So we're going to take a moment and allow family folks to ease out if they don't want to. We do not have a presenter from Comstock tonight. If folks want to leave and not stick around for the meeting, we understand. Congratulations again to all the recipients tonight. All right, for the rest of you who are sticking around, the diehards, we are on agenda item C9, public comment on non-agenda items. I do not have any blue cards, but I do want to open it up for folks in-house to speak on non-agenda items. If you did not submit a blue card, that's okay. Just raise your hand, indicate who you are. I'm seeing no one. We will go to folks joining us online remotely who would like to speak on non-agenda items.
For members of the public joining us online via Zoom that would like to comment on agenda item C9, please raise your hand. Shelby Pryor, you have 2 minutes.
Good evening, board. It has come to my attention over this week that New York just went ahead and had to reinstate its employees who went ahead and decided to go ahead and terminate due to the fact that they weren't vaccinated. They came through this decision to find that by being vaccinated, it didn't matter if you were vaccinated or not, didn't stop transmission, didn't stop you from receiving it. So you owe a big apology to all the people that you've forced to do such a thing, and actually should probably be held liable to some degree by all of the general public, and they should go after you financially and sue you individually. Every one of you, specifically the ones like Ms. De La Cruz and anyone else who has been profiting from any of these agendas that they've been pushing. I think it's interesting that I've had to bring this up in the Board of Supervisors meetings, and I continually have to go ahead and be the voice of reason for people's autonomy. It's interesting to me that Mr. Sheffield, no mask today, not the last meeting or any of the political theater. Ms. De La Cruz, love your mask. Keep that good work up. Keep going ahead and smelling pizza through that thing if you have to. That's wonderful. You're preventing nothing. It's just political theater. But what's interesting to me is that you all seem to think that destroying people's families over your ideas and ideologies should go unpunished. Every person should go after you financially within the community and make your bank accounts zero, because none of you people deserve to be in the positions that you're in. You've forced families to go ahead and oppose one another based on ideologies that you guys have no backing on. So as you continue to sit here and hold agendas like, I don't know, heart problems for our children
Thank
later
you,
on
Shelby.
in
Your time is up. Ted Tiffany, you have 2 minutes.
Thank you very much, Board. My name is Ted Tiffany. I have 2 students at Santa Rosa High School, one that graduated last year with the accommodations that were allowed through the pandemic years. I want to implore you to continue those accommodations for the what was the freshman and sophomore classes, now our junior and senior classes, to have those same accommodations, because they did have that same experience as our graduating classes the last few years. And I want to implore you to make any of those tools available to our counselors that are trying to get kids to graduate. My youngest and my oldest both struggled to graduate. And that was because of the learning system, not necessarily the work of our teachers. Our teachers were incredible, but I do online learning. And I usually have 2 tech support people behind me and have a year to prepare curriculum. And I know our teachers didn't have that. And my youngest son suffered greatly. He failed his first year of freshman year and could and would be a 5th year senior, but he will not be allowed to. He will have to go a GED track. And we need about 5 more Ridgeway high schools to get the kids that are graduating. I think you all saw the test scores, 22% passing rate for the math skills at Santa Rosa High is absolutely abysmal. But it's just an indicator of the rest of the failures of the system, not necessarily our teachers or staff. They're working hard, but the system has to have accommodations. And I implore you to revisit those accommodations for the rest of this pandemic class that has been entirely impacted. I encourage you to revisit that and encourage our teachers that are still working hard and only have security guards as substitutes right now.
Thank you, Ted. Your time is up. Maria, can you please state your full name for the record?
Maria Posey.
Maria,
I'm
you have 2
calling-
minutes.
Calling again to see if anyone's going to let us know why Adina Flores has been placed on leave with still no answers to anything. I mean, at this point, it's ridiculous that somebody can't say something and you haven't even said anything to her. I see that Ms. De La Cruz has her mask on again. And just so you know, if you shake people's hands when they come up and take pictures and then you come back down and you take your mask off and rub your face, kind of defeats the purpose of the mask, don't you think? But it's kind of crazy to see that later on the agenda, they're going to be talking about cardiac arrest with students. I mean, either Adina is psychic or she actually was smart enough to read what the scientific stuff was. And I'm sure you guys will not say it has anything to do with the jab that you've been pushing on our kids. But I also find it kind of funny that, our test scores are so low in California. I don't think we're having that problem in the other states that opened up with the teachers that weren't afraid of the students and came back. That's on you. You should have had the kids back in the school sooner. The teachers should have been willing to come back. Some of them were. The ones that weren't don't deserve to be teachers. And that's about it. I just really would like an answer about Adina Flores. That's for sure.
Thank you, Maria. Margaret Bunn, you have 2 minutes.
Okay. Good evening. Oh my gosh, where did it go? At the last board meeting, there was a great emphasis put on the fact that, sorry, hold on, that we needed to fill the CBO position and that it had been open for 2 years and that we needed to pay a competitive wage in order to make that happen. At our school, we've been
I'm sorry,
at
Margaret, we have a
Montgomery.
bad connection.
Okay. Hello?
Okay, we can hear you now.
Sorry, hold on one second. Oh my gosh. I can't hear you. Sorry, I can't hear you. Oh.
We can hear you if you want to continue. You have 49 seconds.
No, I'll send the letter. I can't hear you. Sorry. Damn it.
Kelly, can you please state your full name for the record?
Hi there, my name is Kelly. I come to these Zoom meetings. I've been there in person a few times, and I'm in agreement with Shelby and Maria. Do you have consciences? All of you. It's like you just sit there and don't look. You look uncomfortable. De La Cruz sneezed in her mask a few weeks ago, which was completely disgusting. I knew that she felt uncomfortable with that because she kept rubbing her ears or something. Like, that's disgusting. Like, what is that going to actually do for you? But I guess they're all baseless conspiracy theories that everything is coming true now that we've all quote unquote predicted. I mean, the UK is having heart defibrillators on every block now. Since when is this normal? I guess just after COVID hit. But, you know, you guys never seem to think about anything. It doesn't seem like. That's it.
Thank you, Kelly. Dr. Kate Armstrong, you have 2 minutes.
Excellent. Good evening. I just wanted to take the opportunity to not let October expire without recognizing the wonderful principals that are spread across the district and the hard work that they do. I'm a parent. My son attends Pioneer High School, and I think the accommodations that are in place, board approved. Thank you for approving the 180. I'm not sure if he'll need it, but it's great to know that there's a safety net, and the team that works together. I think they've seen my son come out of his shell and really have an enjoyable experience. And so just really wanted to take the time to acknowledge the systems that are being created to support students, mental health, their involvement, to make sure that they have access to high quality materials and instruction, that there's activities in place, that the school is safe and clean, and that there are wonderful administrators out there. Really helps a mother know that her son is being taken care of during those daytime hours that he's at school. So really just wanted to stop in and just applaud the work that's happening in Santa Rosa City Schools, and to know that I am cheering both near and afar, and I'll be back for National Teachers Month. Have a good evening.
Thank you, Dr. Armstrong. Karen Wagner, you have 2 minutes.
Good evening, everyone. So as a special ed assistant, I see that we still have many positions open to be able to help our kids, and they need these resources. The one thing that I want to say is that the competitive wage that we need to have to attract people would need to be, quite a bit higher for livable, to live in Sonoma County. The one other thing is that using the outside resources, I've heard horrific stories. These people are not always qualified. They don't model good behavior. They have huge absences rates. They don't send substitutes when they're absent. Sometimes they don't even check in with their supervisor, of the organization they work for. So then you have a teacher sitting there wondering where her assistant is. So I place high expectations on, employees, and I'm married to the game, and I'm committed to the process. And I don't always see that in the outside resources that are coming in, that we're hiring from agencies. So I implore you to try to look within and hire Santa Rosa City School employees. Thank you.
Thank you, Karen. President Sheffield, there are no more hands raised.
Great, thank you. And thank you to all who spoke with your issues and your concerns. We're going to move on to our D items, our reports. We will start with D1, the California School Employee Association, Santa Rosa 75 report. And President Lehman, welcome.
Hello, good evening. Can you hear me? Good evening, President Sheffield, Superintendent Chanel, Board of Trustees, and the student board member. I welcome the community and our members that are listening tonight. Congratulations to our students and teachers of the month at Lincoln and Herbert Comstock. Special congratulations to our classified honorees, Martine Cortez at Abraham Lincoln and Christy Middleton from Herbert Comstock. CSEA supports the approval of MOU number 4, COVID-19 vaccine status reporting and testing. It will be voted on at our next CSEA meeting, November 8th at Rincon Valley Middle School Library. I want to thank Superintendent Anna Trunnell on forming the Partners in Education team. Hopefully, it will help the district connect in a meaningful way with the sites. I also want to welcome the 8 new classified staff and new certificated teachers joining SRCS this past month. We are still concerned about the many certificated and classified openings. Are we advertising like we need to? Do each of the school sites have signs out front saying, we need you, we have job openings, work where your kids work? Can we offer EdJoin training for parents? Students report they are not always seeing substitute teachers when their teachers are absent. Do you know what happens when there are not enough substitute teachers? The teachers are asked to use their prep time, and if there are not enough volunteers, administrators, principals, VPs, APs, and even Ed Services certificated staff go to the classrooms or sites. We are getting reports that classified employees are going into the classrooms to support the students. What is wrong with this picture? In the past, the district has sent students to other resources for education and functional learning. For example, SCO, Lattice, New Directions, due to the fact that we did not have the resources and modalities to meet these students' needs. We are now seeing an influx of students being reclaimed by our district and put into classrooms. We still do not have the resources available to us. We understand that it cost about $80,000 per student to attend these outside entities. And I may be wrong, but now that the students have come back to us, is it saving the district money? Our question is, where is the savings going? Who keeps track of the monies? And why is the money not going back into the classrooms that manage these students? These students deserve to be treated as equal as possible and have many diverse needs. We are looking for transparency and trying to figure out why it is so difficult to request and receive simple items to function in the classroom. Let's spend the money on the students, teachers, and support staff, not on more directors and/or coordinators at the district office. They will not be able to reach out and communicate with the students on a daily basis. Thank you.
Thank you, President Lehman. And now we'll follow that with agenda item D2, Santa Rosa Teacher Association report. President Catherine Howell, welcome.
Thank you. Good evening. President Sheffield, good evening, Superintendent Trunnell, members of the board, members of the community. I'll start with joining all of you in the room and congratulating all of the honorees tonight. Students, educators, and our classified educational support professionals, all of them doing great work to support each and every student in our schools. Thank you for the resolution that hopefully you will pass in a few minutes, honoring our school psychologists who are working so very hard to support our students in these really stressful years. And thank you to each one of our school psychologists for everything that you do for our students every day. The update of the facilities master plan is welcome and shows a snapshot of just how much more money and how much more work there is to do. SRTA continues to support the passage of bonds C and G. And we also continue to ask for transparency in how that money will be spent and inclusion in the process of setting the spending priorities for those millions and millions of dollars. Also on the agenda tonight is the creation of a couple of new positions at the district office. SRTA is skeptical of the need for these new positions. We're not suggesting that somehow they won't be created, but we do ask that the role of these new positions and how their work will directly impact students be made explicit to this board and to all the educators in Santa Rosa City Schools through some comprehensive plans of how these directors are spending the ELAP monies and what their jobs actually are entailed, as well as robust evaluative metrics to measure student learning growth. Too often, temporary positions at the district office become permanent with little or no reflection of student impact and little or no reflection on increased student success. Also, thank you so much for finally moving forward on the English Learner Master Plan. This is long overdue. These students deserve all the supports that we can give them through a robust plan. And we want to see all of our students able to be successful. Just like we heard from the parent at Lincoln of their child already in the first grade, being proficient in English. We want that for everyone in our district. Right now we have students in mainstream English classes that don't speak English. There's no way for them to be successful, and there's no real strategies for our teachers to meet their needs. So we really, really are appreciative of this master plan. And finally, voting election day coming up. I'm going to very quickly encourage everyone to vote yes on CNG, vote yes on Prop 28 for arts and music, vote no on Prop 27, which could expose our students to online gambling, and to vote no on Prop 30, which is a tax grab for Lyft, and none of these new taxes would go to public education. Thank you.
Thank you, President Howell. We're moving on the agenda to D3, our superintendent report. Superintendent Trunell.
Thank you, Board President Sheffield, members of the board, those who are with us in person and online. Today marks day 54 of the school year. I had comments prepared tonight, and I think that there were several made sort of for me this evening, talking about CASP, talking about the facilities master plan, and in general, talking about how we need to continue to support each other, support our students, stay student-centered. And I think that's all the comment I want to give tonight. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Superintendent Trunell. Agenda item D4, President's report. Sure, I will report that Leadership Santa Rosa held its Education Day last week, and I had the pleasure of being part of the planning committee. It was weeks and weeks of planning this final day for the leadership class. These are made up of working professionals mostly in this class, kind of, earlier on in their career, and they get a sense of various aspects, parts of the community. Education Day featured speakers and presenters, including Dr. Harrington, Dr. Chong from the SRJC, some early education experts, higher education folks, and our own Superintendent Trunell, who talked about TK through 12 education. Trustee Coach McCormick was also there, and she gave a tour of the Aquatic Center at the JC, and just all around great participation from our community's education leaders. I felt proud that we had representation from this board and from our district participating in that day. Also, this morning, I was able to attend a peace pole dedication at Lincoln Elementary. Principal Wilson and her crew had a great gathering with student poetry and music and the land acknowledgement. And of course, the presentation from Veterans for Peace and the Rotary. I think this was my 5th peace pole ceremony, so these are great. I hope to attend more. I know we have more. The goal is to hit every school in the county, definitely in our district as well. So I will be attending more. So yeah, I started my day with Principal Wilson, and I got to see her again this evening. So that's all I have to report. I will look to board members for reports. Do we have reports? We have Trustee De La Cruz.
Just a special shout out to Santa Rosa High School's music program. They had their annual fall concert last week, and it was absolutely beautiful to see a full orchestra, the band, and the symphonic band all playing in one night together. So a special thank you to Mr. Decker, who just does a wonderful job bringing kids and all of their joy through music to Santa Rosa High School. So thank you, Mr. Decker.
All right, Trustee Fong.
I got to attend the SCO sponsored Legislative Action Day with superintendents and board members at the County Office of Education, and also with our state senator, Mike McGuire, and also our Assembly member, Wood, who did a really great job. Assemblyman Wood is all about broadband, a lot of broadband. He really understands the need for schools and kids, especially in the more rural areas. And he heard all the concerns from all the districts in the county. And also McGuire really understands school finance, and he really is a champion for education. I trust him, and he's doing a great job. I just want to thank him. School finance is Byzantine. It is crazy. And of course, every school district shares exactly what we're thinking, the same thing. There's a lot of money out there, but where is it going? It's categorical. It's going to very slotted things for 1 year or 2 years. So how do we build a whole system? So that's part of the legislative action that we're all talking about. So thank you to Dr. Harrington, who put that on for us, and to our assemblyman and our state senator.
Thank you, Trustee Fong. Other board members' reports? All right, seeing none, we are going to move on in the agenda. Do we have a CSBA report tonight?
No, we do not.
All right. Thank you. We are now on our E items, our discussion action items. And we'll begin with E1, an action item, resolution recognizing the week of the school psychologist. The board will consider the approval of resolution number 2022-23-28, recognizing November 7th through 11th, 2022 as the week of the school psychologist. And presenting this resolution, we have Steve Mazzara and we have Taryn. Welcome back, Taryn.
Thank you, President Sheffield, board members, Superintendent Trinnell. I would like to turn this over to one of our co-lead school psychologists. Taryn Roberts has been with us for a couple of years in the district and has taken a leadership position as one of our co-lead school psychologists. And I think it's very appropriate and appreciative that she take the resolution from this point forward.
Thank you. I'm honored to be here this evening representing the district's exceptional team of 24 school psychologists who together have the combined experience of 140 years in our district alone and over 200 years total educational experience prior to joining SRCS. Their high level of skill, compassion, resolve, and resourcefulness is evident in their collaborative dialogue. The Week of the School Psychologist is observed nationally during the second week of November. This year's theme is Together We Shine. I'd like to read an excerpt from the National Association of School Psychologists. This year's theme, Together We Shine, is derived from how we see hope after several challenging years. We have all faced difficulties created by the pandemic, social injustice and inequity, economic stress, and the challenges to mental and physical health. And of course, we can add the unique challenges faced in Sonoma County with historic fires. I'll continue with the excerpt. For some, it has been a time of real darkness, and finding light is critical to building resilience and hope. Though each of us has our own inner light, we shine even brighter together. This year, in honor of the Week of the School Psychologist, we shall highlight how each person's contribution to the collective can lead us forward. Indeed, working together, we shine hope and healing among our communities, schools, family, students, and colleagues. Please join me in recognizing Santa Rosa City Schools team of psychologists this year during the week of November 7th. Thank you.
Thank you, Board President, and back to the board for consideration.
All right, thank you. Board members, this is an action item. Do we have questions on this resolution tonight? Seeing no questions, we will open it up to public comment. I do not have any blue cards. Folks in house, anybody would like to speak to this item before we go to people joining us remotely? Seeing none, we will go to folks online.
For members of the public joining us online via Zoom that would like to comment on agenda item E1, please raise your hand. There are no hands raised.
All right, we'll bring it back to the board for discussion. Further questions or a motion?
I'd like to move to recognize November 7th through 11th, 2022 as the Week of the School Psychologist.
Second.
All right, the motion came from Trustee De La Cruz, seconded from Trustee McCormick. We are ready for a vote.
I'd like to say something before we take a vote. School psychologist, I just want to say thank you for all the work that you do as a school counselor. I see how hard you work, and you are sometimes the unsung heroes of all the IEPs and 504s and SST meetings. So I just want to say thank you so much for all the work that you do behind the scenes.
Thank you. All right, we have a motion from Trustee De La Cruz, second from Trustee McCormick. Ready for a vote.
Director Bowie,
Aye.
Director De La Cruz,
Aye.
Director McCormick,
Aye.
Director Fung,
Aye.
Director Flores,
Aye.
Director Medina,
Aye.
President Sheffield.
Aye, motion passes. Thank you. And thank you again, Taryn, for you and your staff, you and your team. Thank you, Steve. Always. Now we're on agenda item E2, a discussion item, Petaluma Healthcare District Heart Safe Community. A presentation by Petaluma Health District's Heart Safe Community Program and Santa Rosa City School nurses, and discussion on becoming a heart safe school district in partnership with Petaluma Health District. Joining us this evening with Director Mazzara, we have Tammy Bender and Elizabeth Munns. I turn it over to you.
Thank you, President Sheffield, board members, and Superintendent Chernell, giving me a moment to share my screen in our presentation. Thank you for introduction of Tammy Bender. Tammy Bender is the program manager at HeartSafe, and we'll talk about her role here. And Elizabeth Munns, Beth is a school nurse with us. Beth and I go way back to the early days when we had maybe 3 school nurses. So there's a lot of history here. And thank you, Beth, of course, for staying with us all. Let me get to the shared screen world. I want to make sure we see everything. My volume off.
Okay, am I on? All right. Hi, my name is Tammy. I'm from the Petaluma Healthcare District, and we do have a program under the district called Heart Safe Community, and it involves a lot of maintenance around defibrillators and CPR and first aid training, and really just connecting all the dots with programs like that to ensure that devices are working, people know how to use them and know where they are. So we have our first slide coming up here. Why is Heart Safe Schools important? And I think it is important to mention really quickly that Heart Safe Schools is not a new concept. It has been around for a couple of decades. There is a organization called the Parent Heart Watch, and they really are the champions and the national experts around heart safe schools. And I do encourage people to look up their website, the Parent Heart Watch. You'll find lots of great information and resources there in addition to what we have prepared for you tonight. Sudden cardiac arrest is the leading cause of death on school campuses. Thousands of youth are lost every year when they suddenly and unexpectedly collapse, typically from an undetected heart condition and sometimes from a blunt blow to the chest. 92% of victims die because emergency aid is not delivered within 3 to 5 minutes. When the national response time for emergency medical services averages 8 to 12 minutes, it is critical that schools be prepared to respond to cardiac emergencies. And this is information from the American Heart Association. In Sonoma County, our response time is a little quicker. It's about 6 to 9 minutes, but it still is a little bit longer than what we would want when someone is in cardiac arrest for CPR and the use of an AED to start. That is a lot shorter time frame for a successful rescue. Many medical emergencies can lead to sudden cardiac arrest on school campuses, such as severe allergic reaction, fentanyl and other drug overdoses, choking and seizures, to name a few. However, despite the initial cause, the treatment is the same for sudden cardiac arrest. Phone 911, perform immediate CPR, and use an AED as soon as it is available. All right, next slide. We do have a couple of quotes here from people who the video, excuse me. Yes, we have a short video to watch. Thank you.
The 17-year-old Claire Crawford falls back. Staff and coaches rush to her side. See the academic academy sprint to the defibrillator.
Took the AED back, quickly opened it up, turned it on, got the pads on her.
Then you can see Claire's body jolt.
And I woke up and she was in my face and everybody was yelling. Or it felt like they were yelling, but apparently they weren't.
Crawford had a heart attack and she and her parents have no idea why.
I have no medical history. My wife doesn't have any medical history in their families that would cause this. So, I mean, you just don't know.
Like burning kind of, but like down my arm, down my left arm and in my chest. Like my heart felt like it was working really hard, which it was.
Claire Crawford had gone to multiple doctors prior to this game. She even had shoulder surgery at one point, and it's still unclear as to why she went into cardiac arrest.
They were going to go in and put an implantable cardio defibrillator in because they weren't really sure. They weren't finding anything that caused her to go into cardiac arrest.
What's clear now is the importance of this AED, and Children's Healthcare of Atlanta is promoting the Project Save drill, trying to prepare everyone should, a student or teacher, go into sudden cardiac arrest.
It's great that they were all trained, and I'm glad that if it happened to somebody else, they would be trained to help them as well.
Oh, that is a very powerful video, and it shows how quickly something can change. That young woman was very fortunate that there was a working defibrillator in the gym, and there was people who administered CPR, grabbed the machine and shocked her really within a minute of collapse. And young hearts are so salvageable, but the trick is getting them the treatment that they need right away. After 5 minutes, it's about a 50% survival rate. After 10 minutes, it's almost zero. So the next slide, thank you, Steve. So we have a couple of quotes here from people who are already enrolled in other heart safe district schools in our area. Principal John McGurk from Tamales High School says, "We are so thankful to have the opportunity to collaborate with Petaluma Healthcare District's Heart Safe Community Program. Knowing our staff is well trained to respond to an emergency, as well as having our AEDs properly maintained, offers needed support for our staff. We get a reminder with a quote letting us know it is time to order AED parts. We are alerted when parts are in, and a Heart Safe community representative delivers and installs the replacement electrodes and batteries at each campus, ensuring the device is updated and ready to go." Then we have one more from Petaluma City Schools. Petaluma City Schools has enrolled in the Petaluma Healthcare District's Heart Safe Community Program for over a decade. Petaluma City Schools understands the importance of faculty and staff being certified in CPR, AED, and first aid. This is why each year we provide certification opportunities to our teachers. We take pride in knowing our campuses are prepared to respond in a medical emergency with adequately trained staff and equipment that is rescue ready, with the services provided by Petaluma Healthcare District's Heart Safe Community. That was from Jimena Gomez, Petaluma City Schools Wellness Coordinator. So our next slide is listing some of the key components of a Heart Safe Community program. And I'm actually going to start with the bottom bullet. Many people don't know, but there actually is some legislation around public access defibrillators, and it's California Senate Bill 658. And once a location is enrolled in our Heart Safe Community program, we dot all the I's and cross the T's to make sure that everything is in compliance with that legislation. So part of that is a written cardiac emergency response plan. We train staff and certify staff in CPR, first aid, and AED, including EpiPen and Narcan training. The AEDs will be registered with Emergency Medical Services, which is also mandatory. Electrode and battery expiration dates will be tracked and replaced when expired. Monthly email reminders to inspect AEDs for readiness will be sent to staff members at each location, and a form to document, because it's very important to document that the AED has been checked. Staff will be trained exclusively through HealthQuest CPR for consistency and continuity throughout the district and receive discounted pricing. AEDs and replacement parts will be purchased through HealthQuest CPR at discounted pricing exclusively for Sonoma County schools. So HealthQuest CPR is part of the Heart Safe Community, just to clarify. The Petaluma Healthcare District has a CPR training center, American Heart Association, and that's where the training comes from. And then Heart Safe Community is a health initiative, and the AED purchases and parts are through that. All right, so the next slide. As you can see on the top of the slide, there are many brands and many different defibrillators on the market. Santa Rosa City Schools has 3 different brands that we have located so far, but our organization is able to get parts and AEDs, any make and model that's on the market. The American Heart Association states that about 350,000 Americans die each year from sudden cardiac arrest. Of those, approximately 7,000 are children. When sudden cardiac arrest occurs, the AHA recommends defibrillation within 3 to 5 minutes or sooner. And again, on average for Sonoma County, it's about a 6 to 12 minute response time for EMS. I do have a nice quote here from Steve Suter, who is the division chief of EMS from Santa Rosa Fire. And Steve says, when someone suffers a cardiac arrest, having bystanders phone 911, start CPR immediately, and use an AED within the first few minutes of collapse gives the person the best chance of survival. Having people trained in CPR and having accessible, maintained AEDs available is key to ensuring CPR is performed and an AED is used. So we're just going to talk a little bit more about CPR and first aid training. About 90% of people who suffer out of hospital cardiac arrest do not survive. CPR, especially if performed immediately, can double or triple a person's chance of survival, according to the American Heart Association. The Centers for Disease Control and Prevention say that approximately 2/3 of fatalities among children and adolescents aged 5 to 19 result from injury-related causes. A Red Cross survey shows that 59% of those deaths would have been prevented if first aid had been performed in the first few minutes of the incident. Oh, you EpiPen's on there? Okay, we can have, we're gonna let Beth talk about EpiPen and Narcan.
So Petaluma Healthcare District, as they mentioned earlier, is going to help us with the training for EpiPen and Narcan Currently, the Santa Rosa City School nurses are maintaining and training all voluntary staff on the use of EpiPens. But by having them help us with this, it's going to free up our time to really focus on students that are more vulnerable. Santa Rosa City School nurses not only serve general education students, but we also serve special education students. The majority of the staff are they're already familiar with the EpiPens on our campuses that were placed in 2016, but it's important to continue that annual training. But in addition to that, Petaluma Healthcare District is going to help with the Narcan. And schools are now faced with the opioid crisis. It's a life-threatening emergency to our students. Narcan is a medication that reverses the effects of fentanyl overdose. And training is vital for our staff to recognize and administer this simple life-saving tool.
As part of our presentation tonight, we're also showing some glimpse of our contract that we are hoping the board will consider later in the consent items. And what we're describing here is becoming a heart-safe partner means each of our schools will participate and be a heart-safe member. In the presentation here and the attachments that we've shown, that is a $200 rate for every school that we will pay for by the district, not out of local funds. That's $5,000 a year to be a member and have each school become its own membership. And what that does is that allows a number of things that Ms. Bender has described about training for staff, again, officially in some CPR training, but also some awareness on these ideas, in addition to just the management of our AED systems and in the insurance to make sure that everything is placed accordingly. In this, we are already making sure you understand that down here, let's see if my little arrow works. Yeah, we already have 48 AEDs that we've placed and been working for in the last 4 years. As was mentioned, the school nurses are currently tracking those, managing those. We've paid over about $13,000 in the last 3 years already in AED management, battery life, and replacements. Kind of what we're looking to do under the board's consideration is to put that all into one subject, one vendor, become a heart-safe partner. And that kind of takes some of that management work outside of the school nurses and kind of makes it consistent between all locations. You can see that there is a difference in many of the locations. When you look further down in this area, we want to make sure that there's a baseline. Sadly, right now, what happens is there are some AEDs on campuses that have been donations. Fundraisers or parent groups have provided AEDs at some campuses. And one of the things we want to do is make sure we have a safety baseline and that we're providing AEDs that have been strategically placed, as Tammy mentioned, in what EMS trained people need in terms of logistics. So obviously one around the gym. We're talking about bringing portable ones in. We have some portables, but not every secondary school does not have a portable. And that's part of what we would like to see included in this contract. So as an example, when they go off campus for services, whether it's a cross-country practice or golf, that we want to make sure that they have AED for the athletes when they go off. Could also be available for field trips. As long as there's not a conflict, we can work that out. So those are examples of what we hope under the consideration for the next contract, that we will create a far safer baseline across where everyone is and make sure that we have enough AEDs strategically placed so we can offer those kind of 3 to 5 minute response rates that you saw in some of the quotations. So what we did in this, and again, this is also in the contract documents, is we've mapped out the cost of this over 3 years. We're hoping that the contract consideration will be used to kind of guide us as we develop this partnership. We currently do already train CPR mandatory for some of our classified positions. We train coaches as a mandatory part of it, and that's currently done with a separate contract with vendors. We spend almost about $11,000 a year paying other vendors to do that. All of this, the $13,000 I mentioned, the $11,000 yearly, would all be incorporated in the same contract. And we'd be using Petaluma Heart Safe Community here to make sure that we have the consistency for all those. In addition, one other part that I think is important is that we're also going to be partnering in our 7th grade PE classes with the Sonoma, Santa Rosa Fire Department to do hands-on CPR training, which is not a formal certificated training. And do you mind mentioning just what that program looks like, Tammy?
Yes, so it's been a program for several years. Of course, during the pandemic, it stopped for a while, but in Petaluma and now with Santa Rosa Fire, we partner with them and we train every 7th grader in about a 30-minute PE class slot. And we tell them how to recognize when they think someone's in cardiac arrest, tell them it's okay to call 911, not to be afraid. And we teach compression-only CPR. Then we follow it up with a defibrillator demonstration. And so far, the program has led to 3 7th graders in Sonoma County using those skills. 2 of them saved the lives of their parents, and another 7th grader saved the life of a stranger. So it is a very effective program. Santa Rosa Fire has confirmed their commitment with me to bring that training back to the 7th graders at Santa Rosa City Schools for the campuses that would like to participate.
And while there's still some logistics, I've reached out to the PE chair of middle school PE, and they're very excited. They have various programs they've done sporadically through this, but I think our point to this is to really create a baseline and make sure it gets done with fidelity across the curriculum. And so that the idea of being a health safe community, and we mean that because the skills that are learned by both our staff and our students in this case are obviously things that'll help in our community, as mentioned here by Tammy. So it's not just something that we are protecting students and staff, we are protecting families in our community as well. And that's why it's important to have a partnership around a heart safe community. We have a couple of just final mentions by our school nurses.
Yeah, so just connecting the pieces, really it's a partnership. In the Santa Rosa City School Nurses, I still plan on partnering with Tammy on some of the trainings, and you know, if there's an opportunity for me to go into the classrooms and still do that BPEN trainings, I will do that when I get a chance. But being able to have the time to really focus on the vulnerable students, and then making sure that all of the schools are getting a consistent amount of care across the board. And so one of the quotes from one of our nurses is, over the past year, I have worked with Tammy Bender through Petaluma Healthcare District Heart Safe Community Program. The reliable, knowledgeable, and confident care that is provided has been extremely helpful. We were able to secure AED replacement parts through their organization when online vendors were sold out. So our AEDs were kept up and running. I look forward to working with Petaluma Healthcare District's Heart Safe Community Program in the future. A partnership will allow the devoted time and resources required to ensure that AEDs are maintained in a timely manner, and that staff will be trained in CPR, first aid, and AED use. Knowing that the safety of our students and staff is being met offers great relief. That's from Jennifer Rodriguez.
Beth can put her 2 cents in here, of course, but obviously, clearly, this is highly supported by our school nurses behind us. Shout out Nico and Sangmo. Other school nurses are here in the audience to show their support. So it is something that's very timely, we think, with a number of issues, and very supported by our school nurses. So with that, board, we'll turn it over to any questions.
All right, we will bring it back to the board, but I just want to highlight something that was said, and I had no idea that sudden cardiac arrest was the #1 cause of death on school campuses. And that is, to me, it says it all, and in many instances, these would be preventable deaths. I'll start with a question and then I'll open up for the board for questions. Do we have numbers on SCA incidences on our campuses?
I don't know if we've connected anything, Beth. Can you track? Nothing that's come to me.
I know of one.
What was the question? I'm sorry.
Any sudden cardiac arrest at Santa Rosa City School campuses?
Okay.
Question, do you have one?
No, there was a recent one at Sonoma Valley High School.
Recent one, yeah. Okay.
No, it hasn't come up in my working with the school nurses over the last couple of years now.
Okay. I'm going to open up to the board for questions. Maybe I have a couple more, but we'll go. We'll start with Trustee Fong.
Thank you for this work. There's a great need, and it's good to have these devices at our schools. I'm interested in the fentanyl. Have we had any cases of fentanyl found in our schools?
We have had to call 911 for 2 that I'm aware of, possible cases. Both students are out of the hospital and everything's fine, but it absolutely has affected our school sites. Some of our in the line providers have been talking to us about this since the beginning of school, that it is absolutely an epidemic, and it has not only hit Sonoma County, it has hit Santa Rosa schools.
So thank you, because this is also, is it called Narcan?
Narcan.
Okay, thank you.
Director Bowie.
Thank you for your presentation. I was just wondering if you know how many partnerships you currently have right now
In the health situation or?
with other like districts.
Um,
How many other districts are heart safe? Is that the
Yeah.
question?
thank you.
Yeah, yes. So Shoreline Unified School District and Petaluma City Schools. Petaluma City Schools is the second largest district in Sonoma County. You guys are the first. And then we have other schools, smaller districts, one school or 2 or 3 schools who we do provide services to. They aren't members because they are small enough that they can manage some of the services on their own.
And just previous to this example, we did have services we use them for AED purchases before this, and now we're looking at an expanded partnership contract.
Right, Trustee Flores.
Yeah, so are there any bad side effects to administered Narcan versus not, right?
Yeah.
So
It's a safe medication. In fact, you can go and get it at the pharmacy without having a prescription. So any of you can.
so
get
if you
it.
suspect
If you suspect
administer.
an overdose, yeah, and that can be from prescription medications. OxyContin is an example. Vicodin is another example. So, if parents were to have, we've had cases where there's been parents with prescription medications, that maybe kids get into or something, and then, yeah.
And where is this store, by the way? I've missed that.
It would be like in our health office. We have to have locked. So we already have EpiPens. We have other controlled substances, controlled medications that we have to keep locked in the cabinet. And so the nurses are in charge of that already, the documentation around those, the training of those. So this would just be another location in the health office at each school where we'd have, just like we have EpiPens currently, there would be the Narcan nasal ingester, whatever the word is.
So I'm assuming there will be other people, you mentioned other classified people that will be trained in case you're not there, because school nurses are throughout the district, right? You're never at one site, for too long. Okay.
We do, and we do trainings for administrators. I was on site when the administrators at Montgomery High School all went through their training from their school nurse. And we already did EpiPens, we did other pieces. We would add Narcan to that training, and we would have every administrator, health techs, other people that at the school site would be trained on those.
Thank you.
All right, thank you, Trustee Flores. Trustee McCormick.
I'm assuming that if we go with this expanded program, that is for all of our schools, including our charters, correct?
All of your schools and including the charters and including the district office. That's one area that was left behind. We have one in the special education office just because our nurses look after us, but we need to expand that further to all district offices.
Thank you.
Thank you, Trustee
So
McCormick.
what about the, I'm sorry, what about the cafeteria?
CNS?
Yes.
Yeah, so part of the program is they analyze where workers or students are, and they want to make sure that they have placements of the AD machines within that 3-minute timeline. So depending on the location of each campus, they're going to make recommendations of where we have to locate. So we'll continue to use the warehouse, M&O, those facilities. We'll approximate, put one in there. That would be kind of location for both.
That's really far. So
No, it is from special ed for sure. And that's why I think on a grid, we added like 3 or 4 at the district office to make that more accessible.
thank you. And sorry, Alegria.
Trustee De La Cruz.
Thank you. Thank you for this work. It's really important. I know my kid actually plays a sport off campus, right? He's a runner. And so I'm wondering, are these also Are there kind of carry-along AEDs that coaches who are training off campus can bring with them?
We are adding that to this mix as part of this. We have portables at every secondary school. We'll work with elementaries that may go on a field trip to make sure some are available there. So we really want to make sure that not just when you have traveling events, because the law states when you host an event, you have to provide AEDs. So we obviously do that if we're hosting. And so that there usually is a competition, but practices are example. That's where this could fall between the cracks. And particularly vulnerable things like cross country and golf and other places where they're off campus. And so we would definitely have that and incorporate that into this contract.
Thank you.
Other questions from the board? All right, we are going to open up for public comment. I do not have blue cards. Folks in house wishing to speak to this discussion item? Seeing nobody in house, we will go to those joining us remotely.
For members of the public joining us online via Zoom that would like to comment on agenda item E2, please raise your hand. Shelby Pryor, you have 2 minutes.
Good morning or good evening, board. This is amazing that we're in this very topic. What has changed since, I don't know, forever with our children? And I don't know, maybe the technology that you put in their bodies that is causing them harm. You don't know what Narcan is. You seem to be pretty unaware of other issues in the community as well. I think that it's pretty easy to see here that the increase in our children's health and their risk that you went ahead and decided for everyone what is necessary and not necessary for their healthy children to be going ahead and taking vaccines that have brought harm. And as I quote from WebMD, does actually bring for the first 28 days heart arrhythmia, which is a side effect of the vaccine. Most of you don't read. You claim to be educators or worried about education, but don't educate yourself on any of the matters, any of them. You just push paperwork all day long, and then you go ahead and act like you have some kind of clue. Sign it off, pencil whip, whatever you're gonna do. Guess what? You've created this problem. Now we're talking about our children dying from having heart attacks. When has this ever been a thing? When? Don't worry, I'll wait, because it's not been in my generation and it hasn't been in any other generation I could think of until recently. So sure, you shared a little clip in your presentation of one person who you don't know what their side effects are, their health, but guess what? Explain all the other children who are having these problems after being vaccinated. Bet you can't.
Thank you, Shelby. Karen Wagner, you have 2 minutes.
Hi, good evening. I just think this is an amazing opportunity for us to be able to save lives wherever we go in the community. I do believe, like when I'm on the high school campuses, I know where several of these items are. I don't know how to use them, but I would love to learn. So I think it's a great opportunity for us to be, taught. As far as the Narcan, excellent. We're living in a society right now where they're making rainbow candy look like candy, and it's fentanyl. So to be able to reverse that, the Narcan is an amazing opportunity to be able to, if we can get to them quick enough, be able to revive them. And so anyways, I'm really pleased with this opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you, Karen. Maria, can you please state your full name for the record?
Maria Posey. I find it funny that for this long we've been called conspiracy theorists and talking about the heart conditions that can be caused by the COVID-19 vaccine. And all of you always look at us and say it's conspiracy theory. Get taken down off of social media, get told we're crazy. And here we are now. Now we need to have this in the schools. It's absolutely necessary to have it in the schools. It really should be coming out of the pockets of all of you that pushed it on our kids, who didn't give the right information to the parents and didn't educate people when you had the information. You ignored it. As a matter of fact, you got rid of the one person that has been telling you about it for a long time now. She actually read the scientific data and none of you wanted to listen to it. So now we're here, right? I have a son that has a bicuspid valve. I already put him through school. He's 24 years old now. So I already know that there's certain things in the schools and the tests they have to do for kids to play sports. So when a kid just falls down from a heart attack out on the court, the odds are that she's probably had her heart listened to a few times. What you now need to do with your students that go to school, when they get that sports clearance from their school, you guys need to start adding that those kids need to get an echocardiogram if they've had the COVID-19 vaccine, because myocarditis is real. It only takes one hard shove to the chest when a child has a heart condition and they can drop dead. And I do know this because of my son. He had to go through massive clearance in order to do long distance running. And now we have kids that have taken this, and all of you are responsible for this at this point.
Thank you, Maria. Ryan Thompson, you have 2 minutes.
Hi, can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Awesome. I just want to thank Tammy and Steve and Beth for bringing these opportunities to our campuses. Being a coach of many sports, many student athletes, and also working on school sites, I know that this is definitely an issue for student athletes, but also other students that are involved. And especially given that the statistics have reported that anyone under the age of 40 over the last 20 years, not 2 or 3 years, but over the last 20 years has had an increase in the possibility of having heart attacks. So I appreciate all the effort they're putting out in making this available to our students and our staff and our community. Thank you.
Thank you, Ryan. There are no more hands raised.
All right, I am going to bring it back to the board for additional questions, further discussion. This is a discussion item. Trustee McCormick.
First of all, I want to say thank you for your presentation. And this is a no-brainer for me. We need to, I'm happy to hear that we have AEDs on our campuses, but I would very much like to hear as a district that we get a little bit more standardized on that, and definitely get more AEDs on our campuses in multiple locations, especially our larger campuses, as well as portable ones. And it's hard for me to speak on, but I'm a teacher and I used an AED on one of my students in class, and it saved his life. And the AED was literally 10 yards from where he had full-blown cardiac arrest. And, you know, when we were at the hospital with him after the fact, the cardiologist was like, there is no other place on the planet he possibly could have been and have survived that. So if he was in his car, if we were on a bus trip traveling, if he was between classes, if he was at home by himself, if he was even in a classroom that was further away from the AED, they said basically where he was, or like on a bed in the hospital with a crash cart ready to go. Those are like the only two places he would have survived this. And the AED saved his life. And I will tell you that training is important, but they are designed that you can like open these things up, turn them on, and they literally tell you what to do. It is very simple. So if you're in a situation like that, just start the process, but I just can't support this enough. And I think if we can provide more training for our teachers, and then we also need to understand and have an understanding that one, if we're training more people on this, the chances of you using it at work is less likely than you using it on a friend or family member because you spend more time with them. So it's knowledge you can take with you with, everyone in your community and the people that you are around the most. And the other thing is our schools are public facilities, and we have thousands, hundreds and thousands of people that are on our campus. And so it might not be one of our students. It might be a faculty member, a staff member, somebody visiting, a volunteer, a spectator at a sporting event. Like, you just don't know. And so having those things there is amazing. And if you ever are in a situation where you're using one, I had a paramedic tell me this after the fact, is that when it monitors them and you hear it say shock advised, that is like music to your ears, because that means that the AED is like 90% going to like fix the situation, or at least put that person in a situation where we did it before 911 even showed up, and it was minutes. But we already had him back before he got there. Now, did he need to go to the hospital? Yes, obviously. But in that window of time, that AED saves his life, and the CPR saved his brain, with the oxygen keeping, everything intact. So sorry, I'm rambling. Just when I saw the video, it was hard for me to watch it because
Moving.
yeah. So those things do happen, and we hope they're rare, but this is a device that we need on our campuses, and we need accessible, and we need all of our faculty and staff that work there on the regular, and even our students, to know where they are, just so that they can have quick and easy access in a crisis situation. So thank you for your presentation. I am full support of this, and I hope we move forward on it. Thank you.
Thank you, Trustee McCormick. And, I just, for some clarification, it was pointed out, and I had asked a question about sudden cardiac arrest being the leading cause of death. This isn't a new thing. I just pulled up a report. This was a University of Washington study in 2007. So this isn't, it's new to me. It's news to me, but it's not new at all. I just want to make that very clear. Trustee De La Cruz. Oh. I thought that you had a question.
I just want to say thank you for sharing that story and to bringing it, to each of us. Thank you. And thank you for what you did.
Other board members, do we have questions, further discussion? All right, seeing none, I want to thank you, all of you, for the important work that you're doing. This is a discussion item. I know we're going to come back and make a decision, but just want to thank you, Tammy. Thank you, Beth. Thank you, Steve, for bringing this to us today.
Thank you very much. And thank you, Tammy, for your help and partnership potentially, and Beth and the nurses. And thank you, Coach McCormick.
Yeah, lifesaver. All right, we are going to move on the agenda. E3, discussion item, facilities master plan update. The board will receive information about the progress of the update to the facilities master plan. Superintendent Trunell, I know you have some folks here joining us. We have Mr. Oden and Mr. Jacobson, and I will turn it over to you, Superintendent Trunell.
Thank you. Good evening, President Sheffield, members of the board, those in person and online. We bring to you tonight a facilities master plan update. I want to commend our QKA partners who worked with us very expeditiously to do this work. It was a tall order when I asked of it, and I am grateful that we are bringing this information to you tonight. I'd like to welcome Eric Oden, our Director of Maintenance and Operations Extraordinaire, and Aaron Jobson, our QKA partner. Welcome. And with that, I'm going to hand it over to Eric and Aaron.
I'll let Aaron from QKA take over our presentation tonight.
Thank you, Superintendent Chanel, members of the board, for having us here. Excited to talk about the facilities master plan. We were here back in 2015-16 at a number of meetings talking about this when we put this plan together, and happy to come back and be able to update it. So I'm going to kind of walk through a little bit of that. Please feel free to interrupt with questions at any point in time, and of course we'll pause at the end for that as well. So we always started, I think almost every meeting, we did almost 100 meetings, I think with different stakeholder groups and community groups when we put the master plan together back in 2015, 2016. And this was always the mission for that, which was really just to provide information to guide facilities decision-making to make the best use of available funding to benefit student achievement in Santa Rosa City Schools. This is a quick overview of what that process was to develop the facilities master plan. We did an on-site assessment of the facilities. We put together what we call educational facility guidelines, which are, it was a document put together with a number of stakeholders to identify kind of baseline needs for each type of school. We did meetings, I think 3 meetings in total at every school site with a site committee. Developed a draft based on all that input, had the 3rd meeting at the site committees, as well as community meetings to get input on that. And then finally put together an implementation plan for measures I and L to help guide which projects from that master plan would be funded and built with those funds. This is kind of a financial summary of that. So the red bars are measures I and L. The gray is the remaining unmet facilities needs. So that was in 2016, what we identified as the cost to make all the improvements identified in the master plan. And you can see there how much measures I and L, which are the largest of the most money that could be raised at the time based on the legal limits fund of that overall need. Part of this process was putting together what we call indicators of quality to kind of help prioritize the different projects within the master plan when we have so many more projects to do than we have funding available at any one time. That was an important piece. So that was put together based on the stakeholder input and our professional opinions, and we kind of helped rank those, and you can see most of the needs are in the high and highest level across the 2 districts. And so as Dr. Chanel noted, she asked us to come and do a quick update to this. So our scope for right now was to update the cost of all the improvements from what they cost in 2016 to what they would cost today. And identify and eliminate projects that no longer need to be done because they've been completed by measures I and L or are planned to be completed. So they can be eliminated from the FMP. We also talked about a number of ways that we could continue to update the master plan to reflect current need if after the election, if the bond measure passes and there's additional funding, which you can see there. One of the biggest changes is that construction costs have gone up a lot since 2016. So that was 6 years ago, a little more than 6 years ago. I think it was pretty early in 2016 when we finished this work. And a lot has happened since then, and costs have gone up more than 50% in construction across the board. And I think we all talk about inflation almost every day now, but there have been a lot of costs, a lot of issues related specifically to construction. And then it's very much tied into global supply chain issues, material cost increases, all of those things are a big part of that. Obviously, you know, a big thing that changed since 2016 was all the fires and the impact that's had on our built environment and design and construction industry and costs of contractors and availability and all of that too. So a lot of things have gone into construction costs changing quite a bit, which you can see in the graph there. That the blue line there is a bid index that one of the cost estimators that we work with keeps on how that's increased over the last almost 8 years there. As you know, a lot of really good work was done and continues to be done as part of measures I and L. I think Eric gave you an update on this at the last board meeting, so I won't go through this in much detail, but I think it bears repeating that a lot of really good work that was really foundational to the schools over the last 8 years was done. So technology upgrades, including teacher equipment, classroom AV system, and data infrastructure, much of which was completed prior to the pandemic with this funding and others, and was obviously fundamental to schools continuing to be able to function. The same in different ways with HVAC, heating, ventilation, and air conditioning. System upgrades across the district, reduce maintenance costs, increase ventilation and comfort. We also did a lot of roofing repairs and replacement across the district, various site improvements to address accessibility, and security issues, signage, and other maintenance improvements as well that touched every school site, and that work continues. So now I want to talk a little bit about the update that we did and present some of that data. So this chart shows the red bars at the top are the total amounts that were estimated in 2016. The gray bars at the bottom are how much it would cost to do all of that work that was estimated in 2016 today. So you can see that cost has increased quite a bit. I think about 65% overall. And then the blue bar is where we're at today. So that's how much it will cost to complete the need that we've identified so far, having taken the projects that were completed under measures I and L out of the master plan. And the little dash box identifies kind of the value of those. And those, you know, the cost to do the work had we not had measure INL is quite a bit higher than we've actually spent with measure INL to do that. And part of that is some of that money was spent a while ago when things were cheaper. And part of that is that it's been spent effectively, and we're able to do some of that work for less money than was originally projected, particularly some of the technology improvements and some of the other things we're able to be really effective with. And we're also able to leverage some other funding. There was a Proposition 39 that provided funding for HVAC and lighting energy efficiency upgrades that helped make some of those that didn't require bond funding, a number of other things like that too that go into the fact that made more progress than we might have otherwise expected. We thought it would be, rather than trying to kind of continue to look at the district as a whole, to pick two schools and kind of walk through what this has meant on a site-by-site basis as an example. So we'll start with Lincoln Elementary, which so happens was featured earlier today too. So this is a summary of what was identified in 2016. You can see the 4 different kind of levels of priority there, both in the chart and in the graph, and about $29 million of facilities need overall, with the largest portion of that being in the highest category there. So this is the overall master plan of Lincoln on West 9th there. You can see the kind of yellow color is all spaces that are being modernized or renovated, and the orange color is spaces that we're suggesting be kind of converted to a new use. So this big piece of this master plan was actually providing a new multi-use building, which is the blue rectangle, and then renovating the existing multi-use building, which is somewhat undersized, into flexible meeting spaces, maker space, and also the other orange box there, I think, is expanding the administration to provide more space for student services. So of that, I picked out a few projects here to just kind of highlight the work that has been done so far. So on the campus-wide safety and security upgrades, all the locks have been changed out. We've improved the exterior lighting, provided additional security cameras. There's still quite a bit of work left to do in that category. All of the campus-wide technology upgrades have been completed. And then in the modernization scope of work that was identified for both the classrooms and the library, I believe we were able to replace the HVAC systems and replace the existing roofing systems. There on the site, there are still a number of needs, including site improvements for fencing, outdoor learning courtyards, shade structures for outdoor eating, which I think was mentioned actually earlier this evening as well, parking and drop off and accessibility improvements, and then completing that classroom modernization by introducing new finishes, replacing some of the cabinetry and other things that are worn out, providing window shades, upgrading the lighting, a seismic upgrade of some of the buildings on this campus, and then we talked about the new NPR and the conversion of the existing NPR. So where that leaves us today is after taking out the work that's been completed and updating the costs with a facilities need of about $37.5 million. And you can see in the graph on the right, there's still a lot that needs to be done, but the gray bar is closer inside, has come down a little bit relative to the orange and the kind of tan color. So we're chipped away at some of those highest need and the high need areas, but there's still a lot of work to do. And then we also picked Slater Middle School as another example. So we can see here the overall cost at $56 million. The largest portion of that is in the high need area, followed by the highest. This is the overall map of Slater Middle School. So we're looking at modernizations across the campus, in addition and renovation of the administration area to provide kind of a clearer sense of entry to the school, and enhance the kind of drop off and pickup area, and also provide more space for student services, modernization and expansion of the science labs, replacement of the multi-use building with a new multi-use and drama building to create kind of a quad on that campus, and then converting some of the existing spaces into maker spaces as well. And then very similar scope of work here, where the security and locks and the exterior lighting and security cameras were upgraded on the campus. Safety and security upgrades, the technology upgrades were completed. And then on the modernization, we were able to tackle the HVAC equipment and the roofing. Here, kind of similar in some ways, list of high priority needs of site improvements, completing the modernization of the classroom buildings in the gym, science lab upgrades, and conversion of existing classrooms to maker spaces. And you can see similarly here, the cost for the needed improvements at Slater totals up to $87 million. Still a lot that you can see on the chart on the right, but those, again, the red and the gray bars have come down relative to the other ones. So we did make a pretty good dent in those highest needs, but there's still a lot of work to do. And that kind of brings us to the overall conclusions that there have been significant and valuable improvements made, that a lot of the foundational, what we often call kind of warm, safe, and dry improvements that were identified early on as the most important and highest priority things have been addressed. The technology upgrades were critical. So a lot of that work has been completed, but there is still a lot more that needs to be done to provide facilities that best serve the students and teachers and staff of Santa Rosa City Schools. So with that, and I think Anna, you had some of the survey data to talk about, but I thought I'd pause and see if there are any questions before we go to that.
Could you explain what IOQ is again?
So that was a metric that we came up with called indicators of quality. And that was just really a way for us. There's, I think, 6 or 7 different indicators that we ranked each project in based on the feedback that we got from the stakeholders and our professional opinions to try to come up with a relative scale to determine which were the most important projects.
Okay, so may I? Shouldn't there be a correlation between if it's got a high IOQ in terms of the value that we're spending? And I'm seeing that like in slide 10, for example. The median one, we spent $1 million, and the low IOQ had a $6.5 million expenditure. And in slide 15, kind of the same thing, a low, we spent, over $9 million, and the medium IOQ had like $1.7 million. So I'm seeing a mismatch here in terms of the matrix that we're using and the money that we're spending. So can we talk a little bit about the what happened here and the rationale behind that?
Sure, I can speak a little bit about it. I wasn't here and part of all the decision making about which projects were done. I know that focusing on the replacing some of that equipment that was out of date and replacing the roofing was really highly critical, and all of that gets much worse the longer you let it go, and that isn't always reflected in the IOQ. Those were pretty high, but they weren't always the highest. But sometimes they need to be done first because otherwise they're going to make other things worse.
Right. Like something flashy may have a high IOQ because of visibility, but something that like people don't see may have a low. Okay, got it.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
So I just,
I think Anna was going to give us a little bit more to present.
okay.
Hold our
so,
questions.
If we could stop sharing.
Sure.
Thank you. And that way I can. away from my multiple tabs. Yeah, don't. All right, so I'm going to minimize this. Okay. So one of the things that was very important to us was to understand, where do people feel right now our priorities are? And we did take some cues from our previous surveys around some higher level priority areas in our district. And so that was seated in the survey. It's really a straw poll survey. It was quick. It was about a week and a half. I wanted to be able to, in alignment with the feasibility, the facilities master plan work, I wanted to be sure that we were also taking a pulse of what people think about the condition of our schools right now. Because the last time we did major polling was back in between 2014 and 2016, which led to the design of the facilities master plan. So just wanted to take a pulse now from our community on where they feel we are. And so what you can see here is within about that week and a half, we had about 800, and we did have 873 respondents. We provided the survey in English and in Spanish and gave individuals the opportunity to select which one they wanted to take and in what language. And you can see the breakdown here of that respondency. Also, we wanted to know the district affiliation. So you can see that the majority of those who responded were representatives who said that they were family members or people who have students in our school district, followed by staff, and then our students, and a few individuals. I believe there were 12 in that particular section who claimed that they were community members. Also, we wanted to know what school sites were being represented. You can see here those numbers and the individuals who selected. Now, I will say that some of our families have students in multiple schools, and so they selected all of those that apply. And I noticed that for some of our staff, they ticked every school, indicating that they support all schools in our district. So these numbers are a representation and a cross-section of all of those affiliations. Also,
You know what would be helpful? Ratios might be helpful in here instead of numbers.
ratios.
Yeah, just so.
I will make a note of that so that Melanie, maybe you can help me since I'm presenting, make a note of that, as I'm sure we will do future surveys. Thank you. Also, it's important to us to know who is representing these surveys and the identities that they bring, so that we are also being good listeners of the culture and climate within our school and in our community. So you can see the breakdown here. These are self-selected, of course, so individuals who were selecting their race and ethnicity identities. Also, because we are also interested by region and area in our district, the question was asked the zip code where they live. Now, some of these zip codes are not necessarily within our attendance area per se, because there might be staff and families who are doing intros, et cetera. But you can see I put a calculation here for the most respondent because this was a fill-in category. We did offer opportunity for people to share, and sorry, I'm rambling. These were the highest numbers and the most concentration. So overall, we asked just an initial question, which was required, which is, how would you rate the need for facilities improvements at our schools? And what you can see here, 5 being the highest need, 1 being the lowest need, that the majority of the respondents chose a 4 or a 5, indicating high or higher need. What I'm going to do now is go through, there were groups of questions, and so bear with me. I do want to give credence to those who responded and give you a cross section of each and how we categorize them. So the first group was around improvements. So the first question was, how would you rank the need of the following school facilities priority. And this one is specifically around accessibility for students with disabilities. So you can see that still the majority of respondents were 3 or higher as far as seeing this as a priority in the overall scope of need. The second was around campus security, fire, and earthquake safety. You can see that that priority shifts, and a majority is going in even to the higher category of a priority 5. Repair athletic fields and playgrounds, you can see that the spread starts to happen. However, if you think about 3 or higher, even 4 or higher, there is a mixed respondency there, but a lot of emphasis and potential importance to continue those kinds of improvements. And facilities for arts, music, and performing arts, you can see here that it is a much higher priority to those who indicated so on this particular question, as well as covered outdoor learning spaces and outdoor eating spaces. And I'll talk more about that a little bit when I bring up some of the most common discussed topics in the open-ended comment area. So the next set, let me just go back, make sure. The next set of questions is related to repair and or replacement of some types of school facilities, starting with deteriorating portable classrooms, which you can see had a high priority rate, followed by repairing leaky roofs, which had an even higher priority. Replacement of inefficient heating and cooling systems, so our HVAC continues to be a high priority by this respondency, and inefficient electrical systems, inefficient plumbing, and we'll talk specifically about bathrooms here in a moment. And then we go to the next set of questions, which is around updating and upgrading certain facilities. And now you can see a little bit more of a spread where people felt where it was a high priority or not. So having inclusive, accessible playgrounds and facilities, upgrading and expanding TK classrooms kind of went in the other direction. Enhancing and expanding facilities for student support services. I'm not surprised by the trend that you're seeing in the data. I think that if we were to take more time and attention, we could explain even further what this actually really means as far as the kinds of services and supports we'd like to see embedded into our facilities projects. Updating generally classrooms and equipment had a higher respondency, as well as technology. Lab classrooms and equipment, you can start to see that differentiation. And then CTE had an interesting respondency as well. And lastly, updating and modernizing our school libraries also had a higher emphasis and priority. So in the open responses, which was optional, but we had, we had hundreds. We had 512 under very specific improvement projects and school names. There was one school in particular, Montgomery High School, that had the most responses, where Montgomery High School was actually named. Maria Carrillo was another one, and Proctor Terrace, and then followed by Slater Middle School. Those were 4 schools that were named. I think Monroe also had a nod on one particular, from one particular response. So I'm gonna, and then as far as open comments and questions, there were 186. I will reference that some of the comments that were provided had nothing to do with facilities, master planning, or facilities upgrades. And so I did not, in the next slide, which is new, compile those per se as a summary, but I wanted to highlight for you what did come up in those comments. So I will read them because I do want to comment on a few. So we know that over the last year, as we were looking for better options for outdoor eating and outdoor learning, We did purchase tents for school sites to utilize in order to have covered eating spaces. There were many, many, many. I actually stopped counting, but I can tell you the number one, as far as comments were concerned, was the need for covered areas, for shade and shade for play structures, eating areas, and outdoor learning spaces was the number one response over the comments, followed by bathrooms and bathrooms needing attention in multiple ways, repair, replacement, upgrades, and maintenance on a regular basis. And then followed by campus, school, and school safety and security, which include examples like gates and/or fencing around schools and/or playground areas, which was the number one amongst those comments, followed by security cameras and other just general safety measures. After that, we had portables needing replacing, paint, interior and exterior, as well as landscaping, which is on the list. People were very concerned about the aesthetics of our schools and whether it looks welcoming and whether families and the community would feel proud if they were to simply look at the school. So there was a lot of push and urgency around that. Refillable water stations is something that many people mentioned, so that people and students can bring their water bottles and have an area that isn't your typical water fountain, but an actual refillable station for them to use on a regular basis. I mentioned the landscaping. Updating school kitchens was another one. They'd like to see more state-of-the-art types of accommodations for our school kitchens. Outdoor seating, benches, tables was also mentioned so that students had places to congregate and weren't just leaning on walls or trees or sitting on the ground. Replacing, installing, because some may not have, so installing and replacing blinds and curtains in classrooms was another, which also can be a nod to the safety plans that we need to have in place. Obviously, roof repairs, HVAC repairs, updating furniture in classrooms was also, there were nods to having very outdated desks, very heavy desks that can't be maneuvered very easily to build classroom community and get students into groups. That was another example. And then I just will thankfully say there were a few nods for the district office, so yay. As you may, if you've ever driven by, we now have permanent tarps as roofs because we don't have dollars that are actually allocated to upgrade our district office facilities. And we know our priority is always first where our students and the majority of our staff are. As an employer, we have an obligation to make sure that all of our employees work in an environment that is also clean, safe, and dry. So I appreciated the nod. And then there were nods towards upgrading sports fields and seating areas, such as baseball and softball fields, soccer fields, the outdoor basketball areas with the courts, tennis courts, and track and field, especially for elementary and middle schools, updating outdoor playground and play structure areas, replacement of asphalt, both on playgrounds and in other spaces, driveways, parking, and walkways, and lastly, updated technology in classrooms. Again, these were the most highlighted of the open comment and open response sections of the survey. So as you can see, and we'll open it up for general questions now, and I'll stop sharing. Based on what we've heard from the facilities master plan update, as well as the pulse that we took from our community in a short amount of time, there is some continuity to the potential continuance of some projects and also the potential excitement of new ones. So with that, I'll hand it back to you.
All right, thank you, Superintendent Turnell. Valuable information here. This is a discussion item, board. I just want to open up for questions right now. Any board members? Very thorough presentation. I think it answered a lot of questions that I had. Board members? I see Trustee De La Cruz.
Thank you. Thank you so much for the thoughtfulness, and Superintendent Chanel, I really appreciate the kind of sharing the responses from the community engagement that we did around these questions. I think, you know, our community sadly has plenty of experience with disasters, including fires and smoke days, and now more than 2 years of pandemic. Can we do like a crosswalk between some of our highest priorities for future areas of focus that really also create some, you know, increased resiliency in our infrastructure that would address fire, smoke, increased pandemic, flu, whatever it may be that's coming next, locusts, and maybe just talking about how we would set some of those priorities with that frame or that lens in mind.
Sorry. Yes, of course. And I think that is a natural next step as we progress further and understand what our potential future dollars may be.
Trustee De La Cruz, additional questions? No? All right, other board members, do we have questions? All right, we are going to go to the public. I do have a blue card.
I do have a question though. So one of your surveys came out with a low sort of identification for TK, right? Is that because the people that were surveyed were mostly middle school and high school folks? Do we know that information?
So if we go back to the slide here, up where the schools are represented. Hi, Joel, welcome. So if you see on this particular slide, you've got the middle schools and high schools sort of in this midsection. And then we know that some of our charters also house 7 and 8. Yes, there is a higher respondency for secondary. And when I saw that result on TK, I think it would just take some time to do some more education about the requirements that we have in offering TK to all, and that it would be at all of our schools. And also some more education about the actual facilities requirements that it would take, some of the smaller restrooms, lower furniture, cabinetry, et cetera, that would go into ensuring that those classrooms are retrofitted to ensure that our littles are served in the way that they should be.
So this could probably be one of those instances when the IOQ might be low because of lack of interest, or the numbers are too skewed middle and high school.
I would say probably yes. And again, as with a straw poll, there's not a lot of information there. And it's just a pulse, which also tells us what information we need to start sharing to help people understand what is behind some of those questions.
I just want to be cognizant and aware that, you know, we have a great mandate coming up by the state, right? And then I don't want us to be caught off guard in terms of the lack of facilities for our pre-K and TK program. So thank you.
All right, other questions from the board before we go to public comment? All right, seeing none, we do have a blue card in-house for Margie Brady-Long.
Good evening, thank you. I first want to say a deep appreciation for this item and for the work that went into it. Thank you very much. And then, is it possible for that extra slide that you had to be shared?
Oh, yes.
Thank you. I also wanted to ask, I know that we recently, I feel like this is super loud. I feel like we recently approved a whole bunch of covered structures for solar systems. And when I'm seeing the top item on that list is for those for outside space for students that's protected, I wonder if we can jump in and get dual duty with those solar things. It just feels really wise to me if that is our top thing, that we could knock a bunch of that out and double dip with those solar coverings. So I'm asking if that's a possibility for us to consider. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other folks in house to speak to this agenda item? We'll go to our viewers joining us remotely.
For members of the public joining us online via Zoom that would like to comment on agenda item E3, please raise your hand. There are no hands raised.
All right, we will bring it back to the board. This is a discussion item, facilities master plan update. For further discussion or questions, I see Trustee Fong.
Thank you. Really thorough. I really liked how both Aaron, you worked on this, Eric also, and Superintendent Trinnell, the input from the community. Aaron, would you go to slide 22, please? As an example. And it's titled Modernization of Existing Classrooms. I think this is later, but it doesn't matter which school finally.
Sure.
Basically, we're looking at the 2016, 2015, 2014,
Which slide again, Laura? I'm sorry.
22.
22. Oh, that was it. This one, right? I think that's slide 22. Is that what you meant?
I think she means 19,
There, okay.
like 19.
This was what is on the facility master plans from the 2015 meetings,
Correct.
right? All those
Yes.
hundreds of
Mhm.
meetings, for example.
Yes.
And so what are the plans now, Eric, Superintendent Trinnell, Aaron, to go back to sites to redo this? And whether we get bond or no bond, I think we're still going to be revamping this, I hope. But what are those plans?
So when we create a facilities master plan, if that's what you're asking, it does require a bit of funding. And so the facilities master plan, this current facilities master plan was funded by Measure I and L dollars. It was roughly $500,000 to create that document. So we will have to assess the funding that we have available and the prioritization of what we've actually already started some conversations about the remaining bond dollars that we currently have and sort of what's outstanding, sort of what's in the queue. And after all of that is done, what do we have left? What did the priorities tell us? And then we have to start looking at what did the entire current facilities master plan say in terms of our priorities? That's where the work comes in, getting additional stakeholder feedback, reprioritization, working with our labor groups, the board, et cetera, and our staff for input on how we reprioritize based on the funding sources that we have and also the highest need, obviously.
So if we're looking ahead and the election is on the 8th of November and our next board meeting is on the 9th of November, we should know, right?
We will have an outcome. I will not have a new facilities master plan, but
Right.
we will
We
know
should
an
know
outcome.
what we're next steps that we can do.
Yes.
Okay. That was it. Just a little clarity. Thank you.
Just, I mean, that master plan part of it, and it seems like, 500 grand, it is a lot of money, but when you think about the prioritization and actually identifying what can and what needs to be done, the feasibility of it, it's a necessary step. So I just want to say, hats off to taking the necessary steps.
I'm really glad that we have QKA on board still. There's a continuity of experience and knowing us, and thank you.
Board members, other questions, discussion? I want to thank you, Aaron Jobson. Mr. Oden, I want to thank you, Anna. Great presentation.
May I add, I just want to thank Luce and Joel for joining us.
I saw them jump on, so
Thank you so much for joining us.
thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, we are going to move on to agenda item E4. This is an action item, updates to the COVID-19 safety handbook. The board will consider the proposed update to the Santa Rosa City Schools COVID-19 safety handbook. Superintendent Trunell, I turn it over to you. And I think we also have Jonathan Jones joining us.
Yes, thank you so much. As we've mentioned previously, with adjustments to safety, county, and CDBH adjustments that we too would bring forward to the board, suggested adjustments to our COVID safety plan handbook. And Mr. Jones is going to walk us through in here just a moment, those adjustments that we are highlighting for you this evening for your potential action and approval.
Welcome, Mr. Jones.
Thank you. Really appreciate the opportunity to come here before you this evening. Let me figure out what I'm sharing. Just one moment. I apologize for the delay here.
All right, it's technology. No excuses.
All right. And let me shrink that. Okay. President Sheffield, Superintendent Trunell, members of the board, thank you very, very much for having me back this evening and for making this time. I know it's been a long day, a long evening already. So I'm going to try to respect your time. What I have for us this evening is I'll be addressing the recent rescinded mandate for a vaccine verification for workers in schools. And I'll get into more detail about that. I'm going to also talk a little bit about some of the justifications for that. And then if that is adopted by this board as applicable to SRCS, how that would then be reflected as an update in the COVID safety handbook. So I'll go ahead and get right into that if that's cool. What I want to do, well, skip right through, go right through it. So effective September 17th, it was announced by the governor's office on the 13th of September, the intention to rescind the order that was previously mandated that mandated verification of vaccination status of employees, contractors, and volunteers in K through 12 school settings in the state of California. Subsequent to that, of course, was also the mandate that employees, contractors, and volunteers needed to either get vaccinated as a choice to get vaccinated, or to test weekly for COVID status as a stipulation of continued employment or by volunteer efforts in the schools. That essentially was rescinded effective September 17th. And some of the justifications for that, how should I say this? It's in line with rescinded mandates from April forward that essentially addressed COVID policy in uniformity, regardless of vaccination status. This is simply another step in that same process. And while I know members of the board like to have the assurance that despite these rescissions in one step after another, that we're still doing what we need to do to assure the safety of both our students and our staff in our school communities, that we're still doing what we need to do to mitigate as best we can the presence of COVID at our schools. So these are some of the justifications through which CDPH and the governor's office were able to address this rescission. And to do so, I'm going to also back it up with some of the statistics right now at play in our county. Sonoma County currently has an estimated 84% combined partially and fully vaccinated populace. Population, what they call herd immunity, colloquially, is considered at this point to be to require an estimated 94% threshold to interrupt the chain of transmission. This has been something that has been somewhat fluid over the course of the pandemic, but has been further informed by the various factors in the variants that come out of COVID, including either the strength or various symptomatic presence in subsequent factors and subsequent variants. And then secondly, the capacity for antibodies from COVID positivity to help support an immune system in fighting COVID presence in a COVID positive person. So at this point, with the current variants at play, an estimated 94% threshold to interrupt the chain of transmission for quote unquote herd immunity in Sonoma County, of course, hasn't reached that. However, there are other modalities, policies, protocols that we have in place that still allow us to mitigate spread to some extent, regardless of vaccination status. Basically, right now, in terms of vaccine presence by race and ethnicity for Sonoma County, I've presented some statistics here as sourced from socoemergency.org, which is the health department here in Sonoma County. And I've presented to you some of the things that you can kind of get an idea of in terms of how our various demographics are represented for vaccination status right now in the county. Our white, non-Hispanic community, for the most part, is slightly overrepresented in vaccine, quote unquote, compliance, more so than the actual representation of the demographic in the community. Whereas the Hispanic or Latino community is slightly underrepresented. There's a bit of a disparity in the Latino community that in terms of getting vaccinated. And that's definitely something that we're concerned about with a number of our school communities. Additionally, we have some of the other demographics are basically in line with the representation, but Latino community in specific with regards to what's presented here, they're less inclined overall to get vaccinated. And there are some reasons for that we may be able to get into. Percentage by age groups, however, is very interesting as well. And this is for the most part, going back to when the vaccines first started being rolled out, that we have the highest percentage of vaccinated personnel in our community, starting with the older people, and then of course getting lower and lower as we get down in the age groups to younger persons, down to 75%, roughly about 3/4 of those, and then half of those also represented in our school communities, specifically our student bodies. The high school and middle school age groups right now, we have about 3/4 of our student bodies in middle school and high school currently vaccinated, and roughly half of our elementary school and preschool vaccinated at the moment. However, that all being the case, Sonoma County currently has the 9th highest vaccination rate per capita in the state of California. And we have, compared to the rest of the state overall, 20% fewer cases of COVID reported per 100,000 in the state overall, and then 57% fewer COVID deaths per 100,000 than the state overall. And I'm going to jump ahead a little bit because I want to do a bit of a comparison. I promise I'll come right back to this in just a moment. Comparing vaccination status for our community overall, I want to look at case counts, case reports. And this first one comes to us from COVID tracking all the way back to the start of the pandemic. What we have are our Hispanic and Latino community accounts for 43% of our COVID cases, even though that demographic represents roughly 29% of our community. By comparison, 48% of our white communities, white demographic has been reported as COVID positive since the start of the pandemic, despite having a 60% representation in our community. And you can see down the list how the various demographics and ethnicities also are either in line, or in some cases, for instance, we have our Black or African American community a little higher, Asian, non-Hispanic, roughly in line. And this is again going all the way back to the start of the pandemic. One of the things that comes from this, however, is while we have a higher representation of our white demographics being vaccinated, they also have a higher percentage, a higher ratio of COVID positivity. And that is certainly very interesting. But I do want to get to how this has played out specifically in the last 60 days, where we have much more in line in the last 60 days with actual demographic representation in our community, pretty much in line with COVID positivity, COVID cases tracking. The reason I mention that is because going back a couple of slides here, I really should have reordered these. I apologize for that. Is this as COVID cases by age group in Sonoma County as a whole goes back to going back to the start of the pandemic. We have COVID case positivity amongst our K-12 demographics, the elementary, middle school, and high schools, age 5 to 17, tied for the ages of 35 to 44 as the second highest COVID positivity demographic in our community since the start of the pandemic. And this speaks to some extent of the efficacy of what the vaccines have been able to do for us since then, because it took a lot of time for COVID rollouts to go down to be accessible for younger age groups. And so this definitely makes a lot of sense in terms of how we've seen that. But by contrast, let's look at COVID positivity in the last 60 days. Now, this is specific to the return to school for this school year. By contrast, we have, again, some delays, as we mentioned earlier, 50% roughly of our elementary school age children are not yet vaccinated. And yet we have one of the second lowest COVID positivity rate right now in the demographics well, I apologize, it's late. Second lowest COVID positivity status right now, ratio, in our student population between the ages of 5 and 17. And that is specific to the last 2 months during return to school. One of the things that I think can be deduced from this, and you don't hear this often. Thank you. Our teachers, our staffs, our school communities, our board, we're doing pretty darn well in the sense that COVID is still an issue. These stats over the past 60 days, they're not crisis stats as we saw a year ago. It's simply a ratio. It's a metric of what is currently active in our community right now. And our school communities are found to be safer than the communities overall outside of school. Our students are safer at school despite coming back to it and mingling and having recess or whatever the case may be. We're still able to operate with the assurance that we're keeping our students and staff as safe as possible, given the context of COVID presence continuing to be an issue in our community. And you don't get a lot of kudos for that. And I want to let you know that I really appreciate the support that you as a board give to the efforts that we make to help ensure the safety of our students and staff, because it shows right there in the statistics, and that doesn't lie. And I want you to, I just want to appreciate that. However, that also speaks to the fact that, getting back to the start of it, if vaccination status is no longer the issue, what can we do as a counterpoint to still assure the safety of our staff and students? So one of the things that we've learned over the past 2 years is that look, the vaccines are great. I'm going to say that. I'm a full supporter of that. They've done a tremendous job in getting us to where we are now. And but to some extent, the mandate, and the governor's office recognizes this, keeping the mandate in place that is that distinguishes vaccination status for employees of schools. It is considered rear view policy. We're driving based on what just happened, what we see behind us. And so distinguishing vaccination status as a metric to mandate testing allows us to discover where there is already case positivity that has already possibly been in play and mingled and so forth and so on. Some of the damage has already been done. And it's like, okay, all right. So that's something that we can probably lift in terms of uniformity of application in lieu of the other things that we're doing. And among those things, of course, is what we mentioned in a previous meeting, making it rain tests, making at-home testing a preferred priority, rapid testing. So that way, when symptoms do arise, you don't have to wait 2 or 3 days for lab results to be able to be as responsive and pivot as quickly as you can when the potential of COVID positivity puts others at risk. And so that's been, I think, more than anything else, one of the really big benefits of these changes in policies to allow us to pivot so quickly and be so responsive. That has, of course, come up with there are some challenges with that too. It's understood that positive results from at-home testing often do not actually get reported. Lack of reporting diminishes the effect of case tracking that measures infectious spread, and yet because we've still seen some really strong results from making our tests so accessible and trusting persons, individuals, to do the right thing when when the potential for positivity arises, either at home or at school. So far, things are working out pretty well, and I think the math kind of bears that out. But it's not the only thing. Really, what we've also learned is what we can deduce, what we can gain from the reporting sophistication that has been developed over the course of the pandemic. So, for instance, we are able to simplify the methods of reporting up the chain, number one, so that persons in like my role and then going up the chain to health offices in both the county and in the state offices are able to access and respond to the reporting as quickly as possible and then shift resources where they're most needed. And not just where they're needed in the community, but very, very granularly identifying why and how to respond accordingly based on a whole range of different facets active in a community. Also, we've got this benefit of wastewater tracking. And so that helps us just as much as all the reporting is the idea that COVID presence is also frequently asymptomatic. And that means, of course, people aren't generally going to respond accordingly if they're not aware that maybe they're sick or they have COVID. So wastewater detection has come through with a lot of advances that allow us to detect the presence of COVID in a given community. And so that has also helped us to be aware of how to respond and pivot accordingly. And then secondly, or I'm sorry, finally, don't know where this is going to go yet, but we're exploring additional options, including this one here as a potential, is the idea that canine support canine dogs being used as a potential methodology to detect potential COVID presence in a school community in a less intrusive way than swabs up the nose. So these are things that are being explored. And the thing is, using these kinds of methods, they speak of continued passion for creative approaches in trying to stay ahead of these things, because we're fatigued from always being behind the 8 ball with something that seems to evolve so much more quickly. And so these are just some of the examples that we're using to justify the change in the mandate that came from the governor's office last month. And so if the board is able to adopt that accordingly, given the context of the improvements in the numbers and stuff that we're seeing now in the return to campus, then the reflection as that would be noted in the handbook minimal. I don't have to go through a whole lot of pages. I can simply say that we remove the text referencing the COVID-19 testing mandates for unvaccinated or partially vaccinated personnel that's specifically noted on pages 14 and 16. And then secondarily, this is a side note, an additional blurb in there on page 7 with regards to additional masking guidance by region that Sonoma County Public Health is now using as its predominant portal for masking guidance for Sonoma County. So I'm sorry, I just kind of like word salad all over you tonight. It's sometimes just the way it goes. But I really appreciate your time. And if you have any questions that I can answer for you, please throw them at me.
All right, there was valuable information that you shared, so thank you. This is an action item, board, so we have questions. No, I'm not seeing any questions. Let's go to the public. We'll open it up to the public for questions. I do not have blue cards. Folks in house, not seeing anybody. Let's go to those joining us remotely.
For members of the public joining us online via Zoom that would like to comment on agenda item E4, please raise your hand. There are no hands raised.
All right, we will bring it back to the board. I see Trustee McCormick.
I'd like to make a motion that we approve the updates to the COVID-19 safety handbook.
Second.
E4, sorry, we're seeking.
All right, we had a motion from Trustee McCormick, seconded from Trustee De La Cruz, a little bit quicker on the gun there. I believe we are ready for a vote.
Director Bowie.
Aye.
Director McCormick.
Aye.
Director De La Cruz.
Aye.
Director Fong.
Aye.
Director Flores.
Aye.
Director Medina.
Aye.
President Sheffield.
Aye, motion passes. All right, well, thank you again to our COVID coordinator, Mr. Jones. Thank you so much.
Very much. You know, I had this practiced in my head so many times. And clearly that doesn't matter, but I really appreciate your time tonight so much. And I'm going to take some of these milk duds with me. So
Well, you definitely.
But you have to say trick or treat.
And more.
I'm sorry?
You have to say trick or treat.
Oh, trick or treat.
All right.
Thank you so much, Director Jones. It's really a pleasure to hear from you tonight.
All right, we're going to move on to agenda item E5. This is an action item, approval of a memorandum of understanding between Santa Rosa City Schools and the California School Employees Association, Chapter 75, regarding COVID-19 vaccine status reporting and testing. The board will consider approval of the memorandum of understanding between Santa Rosa City Schools and the California School Employees Association regarding the status reporting and testing. Speaking to this agenda item tonight, we have Assistant Superintendent Shepard. I turn it over to you.
Thank you, President Sheffield, members of the board, Superintendent Trinnell, Santa Rosa City Schools community. Before you tonight is an MOU with CSEA. This is collaborative work that we came together to, essentially this MOU reflects the policy changes that you just approved to no longer require proof of vaccination status or lack thereof to test twice weekly. So this MOU addresses that. So with that, I'll entertain any questions that you have.
Board members, do we have questions? Right, seeing none. We'll go to public comment. Folks in house. All right, those joining us remotely.
For members of the public joining us online via Zoom that would like to comment on agenda item E5, please raise your hand. There are no hands raised.
All right, bringing it back to the board. This is an action item. I see trustee McCormick.
I'd like to make a motion that we approve E5, approval of memorandum of understanding between Santa Rosa City Schools and the California School Employees Association, Chapter 75, regarding COVID-19 vaccine status reporting and testing.
Second.
All right, the motion was from trustee McCormick, seconded from, I believe I heard trustee Flores. Was that correct? I heard mumbles over this
We're
direction.
fighting for it, yeah.
All right, we are ready for a vote.
Director Bowie,
Aye.
Director McCormick,
Aye.
Director Flores,
Aye.
Director De La Cruz,
Aye.
Director Fong,
Aye.
Director Medina,
Aye.
President Sheffield.
Aye, motion passes. Sit tight, Assistant Superintendent. We're going to move on to E6, which is approval of memorandum of understanding between Santa Rosa City Schools and the Santa Rosa Teachers Association. The board will consider approving an addendum to the memorandum of understanding that was reached with Santa Rosa City Schools and Santa Rosa Teachers Association collective bargaining representatives regarding revisions to the safe return to school guidelines. And Mr. Shepherd, I turn it over to you.
Thank you, President Sheffield. This is pretty much a ditto with collaborative work with SRTA. It also is acknowledging the change in guidelines that you previously have approved. So with that, I will entertain any questions that you have.
All right, we'll accept the ditto, turning it back to the board. Do we have questions from the board right now? Seeing none, we will go to public comment. No blue cards. Nobody in house. We will go to those joining us online.
For members of the public joining us online via Zoom that would like to comment on agenda item E6, please raise your hand. There are no hands raised.
All right, back to the board. Trustee McCormick.
I'd like to make a motion that we approve E6, approval of the MOU between Santa Rosa City Schools and Santa Rosa Teachers Association regarding an addendum to the return to school guideline.
Second.
Motion from trustee McCormick, seconded from trustee De La Cruz. We are ready for a vote.
That was trustee Fong.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Credit
I
where
didn't even
credit's
look up. I
due.
was hearing trustee
was.
Fong. Motion from trustee McCormick, seconded from trustee Fong.
Director Bowie. Director McCormick,
Aye.
Director Fong,
Aye.
Director De La Cruz,
Aye.
Director Flores,
Aye.
Director Medina,
Aye.
President Sheffield.
Aye, the motion passes. And we're moving on to E7. Approval of a memorandum of understanding between Santa Rosa City Schools and the Santa Rosa Teachers Association regarding individual graduation plan 3.0. The board will consider approving a memorandum of understanding that was reached with the Santa Rosa City Schools and the Santa Rosa Teachers Association representatives regarding revisions to the individual graduation plans 3.0 comprehension to Santa Rosa school counselors. I turn it over to you, Superintendent Shepherd. Compensation, I'm sorry. I was saying that in my head and I was like, that doesn't make sense. We are going to look at the revisions to the individual graduation plan 3.0 compensation to high school counselors.
Thank you, President Sheffield. This collaborative work is the third iteration of this, hence IGP 3.0. And this is an acknowledgement to our hardworking counselors who are needing some extra time. And this is to acknowledge this hard work and to compensate them for interacting and helping our students cross the finish line. So with that, I'll entertain any questions you have.
Questions from the board?
I do. So I don't think it has anything to do with the MOU, but I was going back through the history of the IGP 3.0, and it looks like it was brought to us as a informational item instead of a discussion item, right? So, and then looking back, I remember on September 14th, I asked for an analysis to see what sort of requirements we were going to tweak. But it sounds like the information that we were given was that we were going to lower, I believe, potentially math and what was the other one? Math and science? No, LOT, language other than English. So without the analysis that I asked for. So I just, and then the other place where there were reduction, I believe, was under electives. So as a school board member, I wanted to have the analysis ahead of time before that decision was made, because as an IGP, it's individualized, right? And then if we are only going to do, math, LOTE, and electives, that gives very little wiggle room for a individualized plan. So, like I said, I don't think it had anything to do with the MOU, but I'm just a little bit, taken aback that we haven't been able to see the analysis done by the district in terms as to what it is that we need to do in order to have an effective IGP plan for our students who have been affected by COVID.
Thank you, Trustee Flores. Do we have questions from other board members? This is an action item. All right, seeing none, we will go to public comment. No blue cards, no folks in house. We will go to those joining us online.
For members of the public joining us online via Zoom that would like to comment on agenda item E7, please raise your hand. There are no hands raised.
All right, we'll bring it back to the board for discussion, further questions or a motion. Trustee McCormick?
I'd like to make the motion that we approve E7, approval of the MOU between Santa Rosa City Schools and the Santa Rosa Teachers Association regarding individual graduation plans, IGP 3.0.
Second.
All right, the motion came from Trustee McCormick and seconded from Trustee De La Cruz this time. And we are ready for a vote.
Director Bowie.
Aye.
Director McCormick.
Aye.
Director De La Cruz.
Aye.
Director Fong.
Aye.
Director Flores.
Aye.
Director Medina.
Aye.
President Sheffield.
Aye, the motion passes. All right, thank you, Mr. Shepherd. We are moving on to agenda item E8, action item, public board meeting via teleconference per AB 361. The board will consider the continuance of conducting public meetings virtually, including the use of a hybrid model as allowed in Assembly Bill AB 361. Superintendent Trunell, anything that you want to say to this?
I think it's ditto is the
Ditto.
word for tonight. We're bringing this forward each meeting, just as a precaution to ensure that we continue to offer this hybrid option, and under the Assembly Bill 361 for the board's consideration and a vote tonight to continue that.
All right, the chair will accept the ditto. Board members, do we have questions?
Now I'd like to move the approval of, lost it, E8, public meetings via teleconference per AB 361.
Second.
All right, we will hold the motion from Trustee McCormick, second from Trustee De La Cruz, and we will go to public comment. Do we have folks joining us online who would like to comment?
For members of the public joining us online via Zoom that would like to comment on agenda item E8, please raise your hand. There are no hands raised.
All right, back to the board. We have a motion on agenda item E8 from Trustee McCormick, seconded from trustee De La Cruz, and we are ready for a vote.
Director Bowie.
Aye.
Director McCormick.
Aye.
Director De La Cruz.
Aye.
Director Fong.
Aye.
Director Flores.
Aye.
Director Medina.
Aye.
President Sheffield.
Aye, the motion passes. All right, we're on to our F items, our consent items. We had some items pulled. We had F5 pulled, F7, F8, and F10 pulled.
I'd like to make a motion that we approve F2 through 4, 6, and 9.
Second.
All right, the motion to approve items F2 through 4, 6, and 9. Motion from trustee McCormick, seconded from trustee De La Cruz. Are we ready for a vote?
Director Bowie.
Aye.
Director McCormick.
Aye.
Director De La Cruz.
Aye.
Director Fong.
Aye.
Director Flores.
Aye.
Director Medina.
Aye.
President Sheffield.
Aye. All right, the motion passes. We will tackle these one by one. We have F5 pulled. I believe that was from trustee Medina.
Yeah. It was just pulling it. I just had a quick question on the side-by-side contract. Let me see, I'm pulling up the file right now. Just along the metrics, it said measurable outcomes will include student participation and involvement. But in terms of metrics, the question was, how do we measure effectiveness or success? Is there something that we could compare it to in terms of like, have we improved as it's, it's tied to bullying or anger management, conflict resolution? Is there any way that we could measure that in some sort of different way to see if we've got improved outcomes in behavior or issues? That was my question.
We do have Principal Schluter, who I've asked to be promoted to a panelist so that she can address that question.
Hello, Principal Schluter, welcome.
Hi, thank you so much for having me here tonight to talk about this very important MOU. We're very excited that it's on the agenda tonight for discussion. So the metrics that we use, or that side-by-side uses, is attendance rates, incidents of discipline, and grades. And I've worked with this organization before, and what they like to do is when the students are referred to their small group, the small groups that they put together to target specific areas, they take those metrics and they use that as kind of the baseline. And then after their time in the small counseling groups, they reassess that data to see if there's been improvement in attendance, and there's been reduced incidences of discipline, and grades have improved. And that is how they determine if their program is being effective and impactful to the students who are participating.
Further questions?
Can
Trustee
I say
Medina?
something? I mean, personally, I worked with side-by-side before as a school counselor, and sometimes the results are not attainable in a metric way because it's social emotional learning and it's a support system, right? So I just want to say thank you for doing that. And I know sometimes these metrics are very abstract, but I appreciate the fact that you're going out of your way to give us some attainable matrix for this very complex way of measuring social emotional competence.
I agree with you, Mr. Flores. I have worked with this group before too, when I was a principal in Petaluma, and I did manage 2 separate groups with a counselor from side by side. And the impacts that we saw were absolutely phenomenal. They were life-changing for some of these students that were really experiencing challenges that had come into their lives from things that occurred to them outside of school. And they were just creating all kinds of barriers for them to focus at school, access the curriculum, develop healthy relationships with their peers and with their teachers and the other adult staff members. And the skills they learned from participating in these small groups enabled them to kind of break down some of those barriers and process some of the things that had happened to them. And the changes were just, they were beautiful to see because they started connecting with the staff members, myself as the assistant principal at the time, and their teachers. And, we did see gains. They may not have been significant, but we knew that they were kind of past the worst of it and they were headed in the right direction as we sent them off to the high school. So I'm really hoping that you'll consider approving this tonight, and really excited to work with this amazing organization again.
If we can measure, a sense of belonging, that would be great, but that's something that it's kind of hard to measure, but thank you, Principal. Is it Schulter?
Schluter.
Schluter.
Yeah. Thank you.
All right. Well, thank you. We're Trustee Medina.
I'd like to move to approve item F5 as presented.
Second.
All right. Motion from Trustee Medina, second from Trustee Flores. We're ready for a vote on F5.
Director Bowie,
Aye.
Director Medina,
Aye.
Director Flores,
Aye.
Director De La Cruz,
Aye.
Director Fong,
Aye.
Director McCormick,
Aye.
President Sheffield.
Aye, motion passes. Thank you again, Principal Schluter.
Thank you.
All right, we have also pulled agenda item F7.
That was also me, I believe. Let me just double check, make sure it's the right one. Yeah, so on this one, I just wanted to add a component of having a limit to the amount that we approve, an allocation of $30,000. So basically just adding that. So I guess I would just make the motion that we vote to approve the contract to hire King Consulting to maximize state funding opportunities, allocating up to $30,000 for their services.
All right, the motion was made from Trustee Medina on F7, seconded from Trustee McCormick. Ready for vote?
Director Bowie, Director Medina,
Aye.
Director McCormick,
Aye.
Director De La Cruz,
Aye.
Director Fong,
Aye.
Director Flores,
Aye.
President Sheffield.
Aye, motion passes. Okay, now we're on to F8. And this one is Superintendent Turnell.
Yes, thank you. So this is the coordinator of extracurricular intervention. And there is a correction that we would like to make to the job description under the section titled Education and Experience. The attachment for the job description currently says a minimum of a bachelor's degree, preferably in journalism, communications, or marketing. And we would like to strike that and have the education and experience read minimum of a bachelor's degree. And I will hand it back to you, President.
All right, so thank you, Superintendent Turnell. We are seeking a motion for approval of consent item F8 with suggested corrections under the education and experience section, stricken language to now read with a minimum of bachelor's degree.
I'd like to move to approve item F8 with the correction.
Second.
Okay, and I do see a hand from Trustee Medina.
Yeah, I just wanted to get some little clarification. I was comparing this item to the next item. This one's a coordinator and the next one's a director, and I noticed that this one has an admin credential, but the next one doesn't. I'm wondering just like what distinguishes like in what situations do you get an admin credential or not? Like I don't know if coordinators above director or directors above coordinator. I thought like directors usually higher, so I just wanted to see if you could clarify a little bit of that in terms of the requirements for the position.
Yes, I'd like to welcome Dr. Castro to speak to that.
Thank you, Dr. Castro. Welcome.
Yeah, thank you for the question. This position allows a little bit more flexibility with respect to the candidates. It's a secondary position, but the other position that was passed, we're looking for somebody that has a little bit more experience. And so that's the reason why we had admin credential on that one. But this one, we wanted to allow a little bit more flexibility and also not have to be concerned with upping the position to the director level, which would be, more money.
Wait, I thought I read that this position is the one that requires the admin and not the director one.
Well, they can both, either can be an admin, but it's not, it's not required.
Okay, so just because I'm not sure if I misunderstood, did you say this is the one that has the more flexibility, or was it the other one?
This one has more flexibility. You don't have to be, for example, have experience as a principal.
Okay. Okay.
Trustee Flores?
So what's the difference between this and an athletic director position? Because it sounds like all the duties fall under, what the athletic directors do that I know of, and who's doing all of this currently?
We actually don't have anyone doing all of this. We do have athletic directors. The main difference between this position and I know it probably sounds confusing because of the items that are listed under the responsibilities, but I think the easiest way to describe it is a combination of coach and counselor. Both of the positions that are on where we're up for this evening were basically to construct a K-12 intervention using the ELOG and ELOP funds. This one in particular is basically focused on, not limited to athletics and extracurricular activities, but focused on that area to start in kind of like a group of individuals who I've had experience with that kind of are motivated to participate in interventions because they want to be participating in activities in the school for the secondary group. So even though this individual is going to be assisting with PE, with athletics, they're not going to have the sole role of athletic director. They would be supporting the athletics, supporting PE, but the main role for this position is going to be to collect and carry a roster of students who are in, who would be, borderline eligible and participate in after-school activities.
All right, and is your hand back up, Trustee Medina? All right.
Yeah, just the other question was around, it says temporary, so I'm just wondering how long is the position for?
Yes, these two positions are funded by two grants. The ELOG grant lasts through 2024. I believe the actual resource can be expended through 2025, and the ELOP, it can be expended through 2024, September 30th.
All right, Trustee De La Cruz.
Just want to say I really appreciate this. I feel like it's a creative solution that takes away the kind of negative, impact on a kid who really wants to do something fun and healthy and motivating and is, being, I don't want to say punished, but seeing the consequences of not being successful in school. And instead of continuing to punish them and kind of keep them out of this, it really helps to support them academically to do something that they love and that does motivate them to be focused on school. I know a number of kids right now who are, practicing every day and who can't compete because of their grades. And that just feels like, and also knowing that they do not have academic supports to do both and to come back to be able to compete. And so just thank you for this. It's a creative solution that really does focus on a population that needs support and is motivated to figure it out and just not able to right now. So
Thank you. I've actually had experience doing this before as a principal, and it really was impactful.
Thank you. Well said, Trustee De La Cruz. Other questions from the board? Yes, Trustee Fong.
Roderick, I'm just a little confused. It says title director, right?
Not this one.
Coordinator. This was coordinator.
Coordinator. Am I on the wrong one? Expanded learning programs on the wrong one?
This is extracurricular intervention, coordinator, extracurricular intervention.
Okay.
All right. Well, we do have a motion from trustee De La Cruz, second from trustee McCormick. We are ready for a vote.
Director Bowie,
Aye.
Director De La Cruz,
Aye.
Director McCormick,
Aye.
Director Fong,
Aye.
Director Flores,
No.
Director Medina,
Aye.
President Sheffield.
Aye, motion passes. Thank you, Dr. Castro, for the clarifications. And we have one more. We have F10 pulled from. Can't let you go that easily, right?
I almost forgot.
Superintendent Trunell?
Thank you. So this is for the HEMAS contract. And we want to correct the budget that's been named that is going to be utilized. We originally thought the educator effectiveness funds might be an appropriate budget to utilize, but actually after reconsideration and reexamining our LCAP, this is actually already an item within our LCAP that is designated to assist with the EL master plan and work associated with it. And so the correction is removing educator effectiveness funds and placing in it LCAP.
That's
Thank you.
correct.
Yes, trustee McCormick.
I'd like to make a motion that we approve F10, approval of the contract with HEMAS Consulting for English Learning Master Plan revision with the change on from educator effectiveness grant funds to LCAP funds.
Second.
All right, motion from trustee McCormick, second from trustee De La Cruz. We have questions from the board. All right, we're ready for a vote.
Director Bowie. Director McCormick,
Aye.
Director De La Cruz,
Aye.
Director Fong.
Aye.
Director Flores,
Aye.
Director Medina,
Aye.
President Sheffield.
Aye. All right, the motion passes. That clears all of our F items. Again, thank you, Dr. Castro. Thank you, Superintendent Trunell.
Thank you.
Move on to the G items, the approval of minutes. We are looking at approval of minutes of the special board meeting held on October 3rd, 2022.
I'd like to move to approve the minutes of the special board meeting held on October 3rd, 2022.
Second.
All right, the motion came from trustee De La Cruz, seconded from trustee McCormick. We're ready for a vote.
Director Bowie,
Aye.
Director De La Cruz,
Aye.
Director McCormick,
Aye.
Director Fong,
Aye.
Director Flores,
Aye.
Director Medina,
Aye.
President Sheffield.
Aye, motion passes. Agenda item G2, approval of minutes of the regular board meeting held on October 12th, 2022. Seeking a motion.
I'd like to move to approve the minutes of the regular board meeting held on October 12th, 2022.
Second.
Motion made from trustee De La Cruz, seconded from trustee McCormick. Ready for a vote.
Director Bowie,
Aye.
Director De La Cruz,
Aye.
Director McCormick,
Aye.
Director Fong,
Aye.
Director Flores,
Aye.
Director Medina,
Aye.
President Sheffield.
Aye, motion passes. All right, agenda item H, board member requests for information. Board members, any requests? All right, seeing none. The information items are listed in the agenda packet. And finally, before we adjourn tonight, Superintendent Trunell, any last announcements?
Thank you, everyone, for your time tonight and for all of the work and the work that we're going to do to make sure that we have sound, safe, and exciting facilities.
Great. And with that, and for all the kiddos out there who probably should be sleeping, if any are watching, have a great, safe, happy Halloween. Meeting adjourned.